Welcome to Plat Valorant episode 58. We got the man, the daddy. He's back on the show. I created that little jingle off the top of my head.
I noticed. I assumed that wasn't something you wrote last night with your piano. I figured that you just came up with that,
yeah. Yeah, I had. Balla, how's it going, man? You're taking a little break. We've missed you. You're new father as well. How's baby TW?
You know, baby TW might have gotten the Wyatt's weekly award 2 weeks ago when she was born. First week of life, by the way, is the most important. No, actually, first day of life. That was the first day of life.
That's not bad.
And she got the weekly award. That is crazy.
That's a good omen.
But she ain't deserve it yet, man. She was just pissing me off. That's all she's doing. Like, just keeping me up at night. Just wow, all day. Like, come on. So... yeah, I won't accept it for her yet.
Okay.
I'll hold out, put in a trust fund in it for later, and then when she's older, she'll be able to get the Y Weekly Award.
Right.
Sure. Right.
You're saying your child will have to accomplish something of worth before you're willing to gift her the Wyatt Weekly Award.
Yeah, being born is just not enough.
Okay. All right. Well, gatekeeping the awards from his child. That's a fair way to start things.
Yeah. Very fair. This is a beautiful reunion, huh?
It is.
I'm going to start crying, Josh.
Oh, okay, don't start crying.
I'm not going to start crying.
Actually, do you want to see something that will make you cry?
What is it?
Last week we did a breakdown of one of the clips from Bren's stream as he's trying to get out of gold.
Yeah, you will cry if you watch Bren. It's a Shakespearean tragedy. His attempts to get out of gold.
It's Greek. It's absurd. It's gone. So he has actually managed to make it out of gold 2. He's now in gold 3.
All right.
And
Stepping stones.
Yeah, he's slowly
Stepping
climbing.
stones.
He's trying to get out to Plat so that he can rejoin the show because we don't allow people in who aren't Plat or higher. Only high SR players here. But we broke down this clip, which was just incredible on last week's show. A lot of people seem to like it. There's a lot of comments how we should do some other stuff related to it as well. So we want your clips too. If you are a player that, listen, we don't care what rank it is. It will take from all over the place. It just has to be something quintessentially beautiful about the ranked experience. Something that showcases how ranked your ranked games are, how different it is from the pro experience. That's what we want to break down. Those are the kind of analytical pieces we want to bring you. Like, for example, let me think. Another clip from Bren's stream? Oh, yeah.
We've got
something
another
like this.
clip from Bren's stream?
Yeah, I mean, just as an example for the people.
Dude, this went viral.
He's in a 4v2. His team are planting on the A site. So what does he do?
I mean, a good time to play it safe, honestly.
Right.
Group up, just effectively trade off of each other, win out the round. You know what I mean? It's
go back down sand, for example.
What do they do? Well, okay. First of all, you can see if you look at the minimap, he is alone in hookah.
Oh, completely alone.
So.
Yeah. And you can see the omen on his minimap. He has been jiggling the omen. He knows where the omen is.
He has 26 HP. That's not a lot to work with. One bullet would, in fact, kill him. His team are planting on A.
Right. Let's see what he does.
Satchel out. Satchel out.
If we lose this game, that is the price I have paid. That is the reason why.
That's a 13-12 OT scenario right there, where he's potentially just tossed it away for his team.
I mean, hopefully his team still won out that
I can tell you. I'll tell you an update.
What happened?
His team did win that round.
Yeah.
They got it all the way to 13-13.
Yep.
Unfortunately, went down 14-13. Final situation, Bren's in a 1v2 clutch. Kills the first guy. Can't tell whether they're defusing or not. Swings, kills him, but he's already defused. He won the 1v2, but he didn't kill the second player in time. I would have clipped that as well, but for some reason Twitch was bugging out last night.
An absolute tragedy. Yeah, I saw that clip that clip was...
Oh, here it is, actually.
Wait, we've got it.
This is the clip.
Plat Chat production hits again.
He's in the 1v2. His team's tossed it. This was another 4v2, by the way, that his team was in.
So I'm assuming the KO is just...
Look at his face.
That is... Yep.
Look at the chat. Bean boy, y'all blow. Great. I saw you post that clip. I was like, what is this for? Like, I don't get why you're posting this clip in the Valorant channel. And I was like, okay, you're just complete fool, you know?
Yeah.
But then I watched it again, and why it's like, 28 HP, you can get shot once. And that just made it all the more better because I'm like, oh my God, he just went in with 28 HP.
In overtime.
Yeah, in an OT scenario. I mean, those are the decisions that throw your ranked game.
They really are.
So if you have your own clips
Yeah.
of you doing that, teammates you want to call out, etc., send them in. Send them in by all means. We'd love to review one a week.
We'll use all the mental capacity we have for Valorant, the skills we've developed over the past year, analyzing the game, do our best to really break down what happens in each clip, understand why the decisions were made. And how the decisions were made.
If you send us clips of you getting aces against eco teams, we're not going to look at it.
No.
Don't send us anything.
Don't send
that's
us
good
clips.
Don't send us anything
boring.
That's good.
we don't. Yeah, we don't need good clips.
Okay, but we do need your clips. The way in which you send those clips is to use the hashtag.
Hashtag. We didn't come up with one, but that's not the hashtag. But let's be clear, that's not the hashtag.
Plat chat reviews, something like that.
Sure.
Plat chat clips. I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
it's your decision.
Plat chat clips. That's better than Hashtag Plat chat clips.
Not hashtag. We didn't come up with one, Kurt.
Hashtag Plat chat clips.
Hashtag Plat chat clips. There you go.
And then you tweet it out at Plat chat podcast.
You don't even have to add them.
Well, you could also
just
but do both. You know what I mean?
Also at Sideshow Gaming. Just
no,
make sure you have that.
Spam my Twitter feed, please.
Yeah,
don't
and make sure to spam Josh with your thoughts on him putting Leaf in 7th on that one list. And then also with clips at the same time. Why is Leaf in 7th? Also, here's me getting 2 eco kills in an Iron game. All right, what's the next segment?
Okay, the next segment is us talking about our sponsor for this episode, our partner, which is...
What?
Yeah, I know. Could you believe it? Another...
Our show?
Another activation?
Wow, I never would have given... Wow, it's as if there were context clues right in front of me. If only I had spotted them. Like the Manscaped logo on your back or on your left breast. It is.
I'm not saying I can be bought, but name your price. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, a big shout out to Manscaped who are sponsoring this episode.
Yep.
And if you're interested in getting, you're dying.
Don't mind me.
Oh, Manscaped are going for the full-on space partnership this month as well. So,
yep, dude, even aliens need to shave their balls. You know
I mean, sure, okay, sure.
What?
So you can save 20%.
I'm trying to hit new demos for Manscaped.
New alien demos is what you're going for.
Listen, they like Valorant everywhere.
They really do.
It's a good game. You
can save 20% off anything that you order at manscaped.com with code VALOCHAT.
Yeah.
And you also get free shipping on those orders as well. The thing that they're particularly promoting this month as well is their Performance Package 4.0. So it has the classic shaver that you saw there on the fly through. It's not actually a rocket. That's their male grooming shaver. And that's got it's the Lawnmower 4.0 ceramic blade. It's waterproof. Take it into the shower. Take it wherever you want. Take it onto an airplane because it's got a lock feature so it doesn't vibrate in your luggage. That's pretty good. Then you won't get pulled over by security. There are 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. So get your rocket ready for takeoff by going to Manscaped for 20% off and free shipping with code VALOCHAT. What do you think about that?
I mean, what does that mean? Boy, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think you were trying to make it as aerodynamic as possible, right? You know?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's a problem. That's what I usually say. Sorry, babe.
Rocket?
I'm not aerodynamic enough right now. That's usually my issue. Thank God Manscaped solved that.
Inside the Performance Package 4.0, there isn't just the Lawnmower 4. There's also the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. So if you're getting old like us, I mean, I don't know how much that applies to our Zoomer audience, but if you are getting old, you'll realize that your nose hairs start growing to the point where they look like a little mustache, even though you can't grow a mustache. Listen, I'm not talking from personal experience. I'm talking about my friends.
Okay.
Or ear hairs that are growing wildly. Little shaver, get it in there.
I mean,
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be you.
That is you.
That could be you.
Yeah.
Wyatt, you said you had a good experience with the ball deodorant.
yeah. No, I with the whole kit I got because I hadn't last time we did the ad and I just got the thing in the mail. I didn't use any of the entire kit. I mean, look at that. And I got a chance to the genuinely great products. I know that sounds like I love these products, but but they are actually great products. All of that. The deodorant smells very nice. Like it a lot. The lawnmower 4.0. That's the main.
Yep.
That thing.
Did you use the crop reviver? That thing that like you just spray it on just middle of the day, just like boom, all of a sudden you feel revived. Like it's
no,
great.
I haven't used the crop reviver yet.
Mm-hmm. Your crop hasn't needed reviving.
No, luckily I still have my youth to some extent. I don't think my crop needs rejuvenation yet. But maybe one day.
Hey, listen, there's people out there that might need it.
A long day, a lot of VODs to review. Ah, shit, and then just
crop reviver.
Revive the crop.
It's in there. All right, let me read out this final point. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code VALORCHAT at manscaped.com, like we've already said. 20% off, free shipping. Your dick and balls need some help. For a clean Trinity and beyond, your space balls will thank you. There you go. I told you they were having the space vibe this month. That's the read. That's the read. Okay.
Wow. Code VALOChat.
Code VALOChat.
Also the code. Also use the code, which is VALOChat.
The new map
for percentage off.
Shut up.
Code VALOChat.
The new.
Someone's got to plug it.
Yeah, someone's got to plug it. That was a 10-minute segment. I'm wearing the bloody shirt the entire time.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the new map. Jesus.
The new map has been leaked in the game. I assume that this is going to be a release around Berlin. I think the name of it has also been leaked as Fracture. I don't know how accurate that is, but they've also posted
I read
some
it on Twitter, 100% accurate.
Yeah, they've posted some of the little bits and bobs.
Yeah.
You excited about a 7th map?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
please.
next. No, of course.
Why?
The game needs 7 maps because of the pick ban system, Josh.
Yes.
Pick one, ban one, pick one, ban one. And then you're down to, you've got,
normally ban one, pick one.
All right, ban one. Well, you know what I mean. Point being, you need 7 maps to effectively pick ban because otherwise you have convoluted systems like we have right now, which listen, they're good and they service what the game has right now, which is 6 maps, but the game needs 7 maps, and there it is. Fracture, and it got leaked on, I don't know, somewhere.
And
there's
German,
there's
right?
some images of it.
I mean, I guess it doesn't look German. It just has specifically
yeah.
German writing in the middle. But then, I mean, it also has other languages all over the place. So
it looks cool, though. I like the idea. It's like the dual biome. You know what I mean? You ever
is that the idea of it?
It's like Minecraft. Where there's.
What do you mean it's like Minecraft?
There's different biomes. You're in the desert biome, and then you're in the I don't know, the forest.
The trees are different.
The acacia tree biome. You know what I mean?
It's like going from the dusty desert to Tinkertown or whatever it is in Fortnite as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tomato Town.
Yeah. Yeah. Tomato Town.
Yeah. Sure.
Don't you know the song?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just
Josh
got down
tries
to
relate
Town.
to the kids. Part 20. Yep.
All right. I mean, there isn't too much more to talk about with that map until more gets released or leaked or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't wait for one more map that's going to get just insta-dodged every time I queue rank. It's going to be fantastic. Can't wait.
Yeah. Does that still happen with Breeze? I feel like people play Breeze now. Really?
No.
I still occasionally get people dodging Breeze, but not to a ridiculous degree. I got way more people dodging Icebox at that period in time than with Breeze, but
people love dodging Icebox.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I played a Breeze ranked game. I played one time. I mean, I don't play that much ranked, but like when I was playing before Dad happened, I was playing a shit ton, and I played Breeze one time because it was just getting dodged. I feel like I've been in the streaks of dodging like 5 times in a row, and I'm just like, I want to play the game, and then finally I get like not Breeze.
Yeah,
and it's fine.
What do you think the gimmick is going to be? If you had to guess the gimmick for the map, right? There's normally some kind of gimmick.
Quicksand.
This is
Quicksand? What?
Yeah.
Explain how it works.
So because there's a desert biome, and on the desert part, there's quicksand. And then in the... it looks just like it. That looks just like it.
Okay. And what happens if you stand on the quicksand?
You
get slowed.
You get stuck in place, and you just slowly start going down.
So it's more like a tar pit. It's just impossible to get out as soon as you step in.
Maybe it's like... Yeah, you can kind of slow. You can walk out of a little bit. Maybe you have to take your knife out and like really get some acceleration to get out of there. Or like if you're a Raze or a Jett, you could you'd satchel or dash out.
Why would anyone want that in the map? Just Sage slows or Astra sucks
no
everywhere?
one would. No one would want it.
Well, I mean,
but I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Okay, no, I shouldn't have shut you down. I appreciate it. Balla, do you have any ideas? What's the gimmick? We desperately need better ideas than Wyatt's.
Fall off the map.
Listen,
I mean, that looks like it's accurate.
Right in the center. You could just fall off the map by accident. If you get breach stunned like into the map, then you're just dead.
You know what would be fun? Maybe there's only one spike site.
How would that be fun? How would that be fun? Just 5 people stacked up on the same bomb site every time.
Yeah, but there's like a lot of lot of ways into it. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's
Like,
like,
as
the
Overwatch
attackers, you
or
can ambush them and approach from all directions.
Yeah. So like, if you just sit in the site, you're getting hit from left, right, up,
Zoms
down.
as the site anchors, looking forwards. He can see someone in front of him. Suddenly, Wyatt springs from the side.
No, just out of the ceiling. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm
What's
just
that in the
throwing
bottom
ideas out
right?
there,
Is that like a gear? What's happening there? That's the
It's
gimmick
the core.
right there.
That's the
It's the Radianite core. This is where the Radianite's made.
You can
I think.
activate the Radianite core, and something happens on the map. Like
dynamic map.
your abilities come back or some shit.
Oh, you fight over a central core semi-objective in the middle of the round.
Wait,
it's
that
like
would
not
be-
just
I don't I don't know if that'd be good, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that would be trash, but it sounds fun.
That's what I like, though. That's what I want more of
Fun
in the
trash?
game. Yep.
No.
Yep.
Fun, but trash. That's what I like. Oh, competitive integrity. No.
No, toss it out the window. Permaban it if you don't want to play it. All right, let's move on. Another big announcement in terms of Berlin, last chance qualifier champions. Like, as we're getting later on throughout the year, people started to notice hints about Valorant dropping in China because the Asia last chance qualifier previously said that there were 2 slots available for China. Then they deleted that from the page, but people had already realized and screenshotted it and stuff.
Yeah.
And now there's a separate announcement, which Liquipedia translated a post from the League of Legends Weibo account. So, I mean, we are getting this information fifth hand at this point, basically. But
Sure.
confirming that Valorant is going to be officially announced in China on September the 5th at League of Legends China's 10th anniversary. So that's like, presumably it's one of the things on the schedule. It just says Valorant announcement or something like that. Oh yeah, there it says. It literally says Valorant. So what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, I suppose the primary question is if it's going to affect, I don't know, last chance or not Berlin, but champions at the end of the year, because there is just an open spot for. Isn't there just an open spot for like an Asian team?
There's an Asia last chance qualifier.
Yeah, it's just an Asia last chance qualifier generally, right? So will it affect that? Oh, that'll be that is a question. But I mean, it's great. I mean, that's what a lot of people have been waiting for, right? Major region, the last major region, really, to come into the game. And it's also gonna. I mean, the Valorant numbers are probably gonna go through the fucking roof.
I would imagine so.
Well, they always get reported separately anyway, so it's like, who knows? I think that there's definitely been a lot. I think, what is it? Hong Kong plays a bunch of tournaments. Like, they already have the game out there, and they're playing tournaments, and people are starting to form teams and whatnot. And there was the rumors of FPX, getting ready to sign some Chinese players as well, a Chinese roster. So Who knows? I think this is just hopeful, and everybody is waiting for that last bastion, the last big place for Valorant to be released to really see how it'll do in Asia. Because China is, the biggest one out there. So who knows what it could mean for Asia in general and the game in general too? Because having a major Eastern audience like that could mean numbers, like Wyatt said.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the Chinese viewership is always a bit opaque to people from the outside because they use popularity metrics rather than viewership on a lot of their websites. But the Overwatch League this year has essentially been subsisting on Chinese viewership. It has like majority Chinese viewership for a lot of what it does because it's been heavily pushed in that market and because there's so many people there. And League of Legends as well. It's incredibly popular in China. I feel like Valorant is primed to be extremely popular in that region. Yeah. And it looks like they would inevitably be good at it. I know that China themselves have actually used alternate accounts. I don't know where they go. Maybe SEA or something like that. Or maybe they're Japanese accounts or something. I don't know. But there are Chinese tournaments that happen with some pro players from China that they just don't have the game in China. But if you like VPN out and you get something else, then you can still play the game. So people have been running some Chinese tournaments. I know that there was like some cups that have been running between the Chinese and the Korean teams, and some of the Chinese teams were actually beating some decent Korean teams way back when I was following it, like First Strike kind of era.
Yeah,
I haven't been following it since then, but it seems like they're all, even if there was last chance qualifier spots for China, I think there'd already be teams good enough to be able to make it relatively deep. But with Korea only having one spot at Champions, if you want to take that Asia last chance qualifier spot, you have to be better than the second best team in Korea.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whether China's there yet. I haven't looked into it enough.
Yeah. That is a topic for another time, but there's that Korea have one spot.
Yeah, that is absolutely bizarre. Hopefully they fix that for next year.
That is a topic for another day.
Well, that would be lovely if Riot fixed it, wouldn't it? Riot fixed something else this week, though. They fixed the format for Berlin.
Yeah. They fixed it real quick, too.
That was fast. Like 2 hours. Well, not 2 hours, but like a couple hours.
It was 10. I think it was 10 hours from the announcement to the fix.
I mean, people were
very
losing their mind. Yeah, I remember I was streaming that day, and while I streamed when the announcement went live, and we talked about it at the beginning of that one stream. I talked about it with you, and we were talking about how it was a bad format, and then later that same stream, people were like, "Hey, it's fixed already." I'm like, "Oh, really? All right, cool." I mean, yeah, it was fast as hell. Good change, and I mean, listen, it made complete sense to make this change, right? I mean, it fit within the constraints that they set as to the time allotted for the tournament, which was probably the most confusing part as to why this wasn't the format initially. They were just rerunning
to set
an additional game.
To set some context for anyone who might not have been following it, they originally had GSL-style group stage, which is you have 4 teams and you run a double elim bracket between those 4. And normally the top 2 go through to a playoff, to a single elim bracket. But they had only the top 1 team from the 4 be able to make it through. And so they were going straight into semifinals. But they were still playing... They played every single game of the double elim. If you only promote 2 teams, you don't need to play that final game of your double elim group stage. So it's the same number of matches either way. That's why I am really confused. Why was this not the first and most obvious option for them? It's great that Riot fixed things, but why were they even considering this worse format at the beginning? Like, what would go through someone's head to try and do this?
It is a... Well, go on, Balla.
The nuance is I think that with the way that they changed it, there's going to be one quarterfinals game that gets played on the same day as groups are ending, or so basically it creates this odd place where you don't necessarily know who's going to be playing on that day, and then there's teams that get an advantage by whatever. It creates all this honestly irrelevant stuff because it doesn't matter. It's not like somebody's getting a disadvantage by playing twice on one day or something like that. But it just had this weird situation where we'll have a quarterfinal on the same day as group stages.
Right.
So it won't necessarily be as clear. Whereas if you did the other way, it would be all group stages end and then quarterfinals plays the next day, or semifinals plays the next.
Okay. Well, at least that makes some level of sense as to why they would have gone with the first format.
Glad they changed it, though, because it's... I mean, at the end of the day, we want to see as many games as possible between as many of the different international teams as possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't... Yeah, it's just... It would have been so unfortunate to see repeat games rather than interesting matchups between top teams that we never get to see play against each other, right? I mean, it's just, at the end of the day, we're getting more matches between different teams that are good from different regions. That's what I want to see. Also, this system would have absolutely boomed any chance for upset potential, which would have made the groups even more boring, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because in some of the groups, it would have just been, I mean, it's cool that Sentinels are like, if there's a group that's like, because we don't actually know how the groups are going to shape up at this point. But hypothetically, let's say there's just a group that was like Sentinels, and then like one of the winning team, like maybe Vivo Keyd, and then like two of the teams like F4Q and another team, I don't know, an SCA team or something in one group. It's like, okay, well, we just know all these guys are going to lose. Yeah. No one else is making it through this group. Yeah. There's no, it totally devalues. So it's you avoid unfun circumstances like that.
It also fixes some of the problems with seeding probably as well, because the seeding for Reykjavik was off the wall bonkers. Yeah. And that was just a big open double limb bracket. If you make off the wall bonkers seeding and apply it to groups and create a group of death where only one team can go through and there's 3 top teams in there, you've fucked your tournament immediately. Yeah. Whereas at least here you would have to create like a gnarly group of death with 3 top teams in it. And even then 2 of them would end up going through and only 1 would get removed. So it does something to mitigate poor seeding as well, which I'm sure is going to be an issue at Berlin, because there's no great way of seeding. There's no great way of fixing that.
That's kind of the point of a group stage anyways, is to get the seeding ready for playoffs. Whereas in the other format, all you'd have is a bunch of first place teams in their group. So you don't really know who's performing better or worse. I mean, obviously it's not relative anyways, the seeding, so it's not as good, but at least you have some sort of form seeding where you have first place in one group going against second place in another group in quarterfinals. So that's good. That's really good.
Yep. All right. Let's take a look at what happened this week, though. We said last week that we were going to try and spend this week catching up on Brazil, LATAM, Japan, SEA, all of those regions that we haven't yet watched. That's too much. That was too much for one episode. That's too much even for like 2 episodes.
I forgot that there was also going to be all the EU nonsense that like...
EMEA finished up as well. We didn't actually know who EMEA teams were last week when we did it. It was like happening live.
There's a lot of games.
Yeah. So we're going to, this week, we recap EMEA. We're going to talk a bit about Brazil and LATAM as well. And then we'll save the Japan and SEA stuff for the future too. And we'll go through some of, the predictions and power rankings and that kind of stuff once the groups actually get announced. But for now, let's talk about the EMEA qualifier, because that just wrapped up. When we were doing our previous episode, it was like Giants were still playing against Guild, and then Guild was set to play against G2 as well. It was that day where things were still getting figured out in the bottom bracket.
Forza, I think at the
I believe so. In the lower bracket, they were down there. Liquid Forza, Liquid Gambit. So we started here at like lower round 2, and I said foolishly, I was like, I think Guild have quite easily got that game against Giants, and then who knows what happens in the G2 game. And in fact, both of those were nail biters and incredibly winnable for Giants. That could have been a hell of a run.
Yeah, they really were. Giants, it's a good effort from Giants. I think Guild were ripe. I mean, I feel like Guild are one of the teams that are always going to be ripe to get upset, to be honest.
Yeah.
So if you perceive that as an upset, that's what it was. But I think that game was fairly close on paper anyhow.
Much of a muchness.
I mean, if we want to just start with Gambit though, and them winning, do you think that is surprising that they went on to win in the fashion that they did?
Yes.
So what it looked like to me was after they had qualified, there was like just an immense weight was lifted from them, and they started looking a lot more loose and just more confident in more of the individual sense and the willingness to make aggressive plays in the latter games, and that ended up paying off. But Yeah, I was pretty surprised that they won. I mean, I'm not surprised that they qualified, though. To be honest, I think there's a lot to say even just in that Liquid game against
Yeah, I
Gambit.
think that's a good place to start.
That is probably
actually.
the best place to start because that is the game that qualified them. I mean, Liquid almost won through sheer, I don't know,
Gambit almost threw.
prayer and miracle. I mean, it was. I mean, it was. There was a moment where it was like, holy shit, this is about to be the same thing as the last qualifier where in the darkest hour of Team Liquid, only Link can save them.
Yeah,
and
Link
he just comes up with a miracle clutch.
Link's a
just
freak. He
over
really
and
does,
over.
yeah.
It's unreal how much towards the end of this game he was just keeping them in it through sheer
willpower alone.
Yeah, it was truly
feels like.
unbelievable. I mean, Liquid had to clutch out so many unwinnable scenarios to stay in that final map. I mean, it was a pretty unbelievable game. But watching that, it was also just clear that Gambit were the better team. And so in that respect, I'm glad that they qualified. I guess maybe as a general sort of a narrative point about Gambit, I am glad to see them qualify, and I do appreciate sort of their story in that they pretty much they stayed together with the same guys. They were the known scrim lords.
Yeah.
And they've just slowly improved in matches over time when it has mattered. I thought they looked incredible in the last qualifier, but they didn't make it through.
Yeah,
and I think that one of the main issues then was their map pool, which they've really developed this time, and they further improved. They made it through. Cool story. Glad to see them through.
I also really like how there's just some players on the team now that are getting really recognized on the international stage just by playing in EMEA playoffs. Like Nats last time, we all kind of knew that he was definitely a star in the making, and people were going to start shouting him out as one of the best players in the world. But like now, people really, really recognize just because of how well he played throughout this qualifier. And specifically in that game as well. It was Nats and was it Chronicle who was really, really playing well in the Icebox map. And that's the one that people watched. So like Defo has picked up some steam as well. Shados literally has pulled up some of those ridiculous things that people now recognize Gambit as a team with individual players. It's not just like the spooky CIS team that people are losing to in scrims and nobody knows anything about. People know what Gambit is now, which is cool too.
Are we able to bring up that screen of their Liquid game though again, Kurt? Because the Liquid game, they got away with it, right? If you look at the first map, Split, I would argue that they should be favored here as well. It's a bad map pool for Liquid. Liquid's map pool is looking atrocious at the moment now that they have to ban Ascent, but Ascent Gambit's best map, so it's not terrible for them. But they lose a close game on Split. They blow them out the water on Bind as well. If you can just flick ahead to Bind and showcase that. It was like 13-3 or something. Gambit winning all of their defensive rounds, basically.
It's funny that Ascent is like their go-to map in regards to a lot of the picks because their bind is
really good. But also the final map, right, is just a tale of who cannot attack. They just can't attack at all. Both teams had 9-3 halves, and this is not some aberration from just this match. This haunted Gambit throughout the whole tournament. Their attack rounds are garbage. I'm amazed that they won the tournament with how bad their attack rounds are. I want to just to highlight this. I looked up how many rounds they'd won on their attack and how many they'd won on defense, because I think they're the best defensive team in the game right now. I think I'm including Sentinels in that as well. The defensive system that Gambit has set up, and they have so many different styles, and they can rely on Nats and rely on Defo's Open, and they just have a ton of different things that they can go to. Sentinels are definitely the all-round better team, I would say, but specifically on defense, Gambit look amazing. They won 141 to 82 rounds on defense, so they're getting what even is that as a half? That's somewhere between a 7-5 and an 8-4 half is that what they're averaging on defense. But their attack rounds, they're 83 for 109. They're even when you consider that they were playing against, they won the fucking tournament, and they are miles behind when it comes to their attack rounds as well.
Yeah.
The difference between them is massive, and when you watch them in the game, they look like they need 8 rounds on defense in order to close out a map. They really struggle on their attack sides, and that happened in so many of these matches. It's kind of mad how much of a hole it is in their game, or at least in this tournament, compared to their success. They won. They beat all the other top teams, and they still managed to do it mostly by winning on defense.
Is that just this tournament? That stat?
Yeah, that is just from this tournament. I don't know how it applies to previous tournaments as well, because it's not something that I've noticed in the past from Gambit. When I've watched their games, their defense has always been great, but from what I can remember, their attack sides looked pretty decent in the past. I never noticed it this much, but this wasn't just in one match or 2 matches or something. This was in 4 or 5 matches that they played in this tournament. Their attack halves were terrible, and it's kind of mind-blowing to me, but it is a very distinct thing for them to work on heading into Berlin.
I wanted to interject here real quick. I'm sorry I'm not showing anything on screen. Twitch's VODs are failing to load currently, so I'll try to fix that.
Oh.
That's unfortunate.
Unlucky.
YouTube, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. The
YouTube quality is stuck at 360p. So
nice.
Perfect.
I guess I can show that.
Perfect.
The stat is interesting to me because, very interesting, because genuinely what you would see in a team that wins a tournament is that it'd be pretty even, right? Or it wouldn't be even, it'd be good on both sides.
Yeah, it'd be inflated by the fact that they won almost.
Exactly. So if you think about that, then if they weren't necessarily all the way through to the end and it was just another team that just qualified or something like that, then you would really see the discrepancy even more, right? Just because they didn't win, and you'd see how hard that bias would go on the other side. I don't know. That's just kind of guessing, but it is very, very interesting. And the weird part is that I didn't, when I was watching them, I didn't feel that way. I felt like they had good, they were fluid on their attack side. It's not like they were just doing some random shit all the time, and it wasn't like XSAT or some of these other teams that you're just whoa, scratching your head all the time and wondering what is the plan. It didn't feel like that to me.
I agree, Balla. Well, what I was noticing was that Gambit always had really nice ideas, but their ideas didn't actually get executed particularly well. When I was watching them on Icebox, for example, in the Liquid game, if we want to look there, they kept trying to overcomplicate things, I think, where they were trying to lurk somebody down mid and lurk someone into B, and then they have 3 players making a distraction over at A, and then their mid player got killed and their B lurk got killed, and then they just have 3 players at A. And especially on Icebox, where you can get such value out of simple sight hits, every round they had 3 players trying to lurk through mid and find timings and stuff based off other people. And it just, in OT as well against Liquid, even though they won in the OT, they sent 3-4 people mid every attack round in OT, and they were really hard trying to work that area, even though it had failed for them multiple times. I think there was some level of adaptation and overcomplicating things that ended up breaking down for them, because I liked their game plans a lot of the time, but then it crumbled because the opponents just had a great read of it, and when they were playing against Ascend, for example, they were just getting boomed by the defensive aggression. I don't know. It was wild.
Yeah. It seemed a lot of the lost rounds to me as well, though. I agree with your point about them having ideas, but oftentimes failing to execute them. I think you even saw that on their best maps, like Bind on attack. They would have unique ideas as to how to use the Viper util to hit the A site, but there were so many times where the timing was off with the push out of showers and short at the they just weren't effectively syncing up. But I think a lot of those lost rounds honestly just come from post plants. I think they failed to close a number of rounds. I think they get the spike. They have good ideas on how to take the site and they get the spike down, but they fail in a lot of post plant situations. I think that was really prevalent in the Liquid game, but still was something that lingered later on, where even in advantageous situations, post plant by positioning or at times and against Liquid with numbers. They still were failing in a lot of those scenarios to just effectively trade for each other. I think that's where a lot of lost rounds come from. But, and that being said, their run there wasn't smooth. It was all of their games were...
bumpy,
Yeah, they were rough. It was not smooth sailing to qualify for them.
No, and then once they qualified, it was.
Yeah, it really looked like the weight was just lifted off them. after qualifying, and that assisted them quite a bit. But they look really good. They absolutely deserve the qualification. The win is cool. I think for me now moving forward, though, it's just a question of, are we going to see? It seems more likely that we're going to see like the Gambit of the qualifier in Berlin rather than a bit of a looser, more aggressive. Not even. I think aggressive is the wrong word. It's just a looser and more confident looking team that we saw post the qualification where they were able to win the tourney. That is the main question, I think, for me, where they land.
You want to pause, Mr. Curtis?
Continuation of the match.
We're good.
Nice.
Just the best match. I'm sorry, I was just really trying to get the liquid match because that was like the most interesting one.
Yeah.
And just everything regarding that match on the internet is just broken. I don't know why.
That is so sad.
I thought it was my
odd.
computer,
Liquid
but no,
Manager's
it's just
trying hard as heck to delete all of that.
Liquid Manager, please delete this. Gambit though, as they see the thing that I noticed as well as they went deeper throughout the tournament too, especially what you're saying, Wyatt, was evident on Haven. Haven is their permaban. They never play Haven. They don't even have a comp that they know how to run. Redgar was literally having a Twitter poll for what character he
That's what I mean. And he was popping off.
And he was dominating.
Which is they're just confident at that point.
Yeah,
they've made it.
That to me felt like taking a look into Scrim Gambit. When I watched them on Haven, that was like a portal to look at Scrim Gambit that rolls people.
Yeah.
You know, like all of these teams are like, oh, we're just getting fucking like, we only got 4 rounds against Gambit and Scrims, like that kind of thing. That map, Haven, whether they played it against SMB or Ascend, they won both of them. SMB and Ascend are both pretty fucking good on Haven, and they got crushed. It was like 13-3, 13-4, or something like that on the 2 Haven games. On Gambit's permaban. And when you're watching, it's just like Redgar's running around Arena, just fucking running into an area and getting a timing on someone. The Gambit haven't come up with good plans for this game, but they are just using their individual ability to sense the flow of the game and look for duels and take timings on people and play in a really unpredictable manner. And yeah, it felt to me like looking into a portal at Scrim Gambit, who didn't give a fuck. And a lot of their other play is extremely structured. It's what lends them such good defenses, is that they have great protocols on like, okay, X piece of utility goes. Did it spot someone? Okay, player rotates there, etc., etc. On this map, they're just fucking running around like it's a scrim. And they were battering people because they're very individually talented. It makes me wonder if their style is even good for that team, or whether they should be playing this map more or something. But I don't know. It's bizarre.
I'd argue that the stats that you talked about with defensive sidedness of Gambit actually tends to be good for Haven specifically. Just especially if you don't necessarily have like a plan or you practice that map a lot. Just because I think that map defensively is one that you just have to feel. You just, if you have good setups naturally on all the other maps, it'll come naturally on Haven as well. You know what I'm saying? Like It's really easy, really intuitive to play Haven defensively if you have the discipline to have all these crazy setups. You know, not crazy, but like just simple, basic stuff will work really, really well on Haven because there's just so much that you can do on that map.
Yeah. It's very odd. I mean, like Chronicle playing Brim and trying to molly C long, and then it's just so. And then Redgar, who's normally their IGL and honestly their worst fragging player, just picking Reyna and Jett and dunking on people. It was a trip watching this game, and the casters as well at the time were like, okay, these teams are kind of trolling. Like they knew that it was Gambit's permaban, but I think there was also this assumption that the other team was dicking about as well because they weren't able to beat them on the permaban. But Ascend apparently tweeted afterwards that they weren't taking it 100%, but I think that might have been partially because they got battered. So I think that might have been a bit of a defensive. No, we weren't taking it seriously. Because all the rest of the maps did have all of that structure, but I don't know. Gambit are a
And they
weird team,
went
but it's a lot
hard
of
at
fun.
each other too, like on the rest of the maps. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah, they
overtime
did.
on Ascent against Ascend. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
so you can't really say that. Although there was also tweets beforehand, like, who was it? Deke tweeting
Yeah.
like, "Oh, can't wait to play seriously in this seeding game," like
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
up off the bat. So yeah,
Yeah.
You always got to
strikes again.
You got to pre-fire the "it's just a seeding game" tweet just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case things go wrong. Because then if you win, like, dude, they weren't even trying. But if they lose, well, they already said it was just. So you always have to pre-fire the seeding game tweet.
It is actually important that Gambit won this one, though, because that means they're guaranteed to dodge Sentinels in a group. The other EMEA teams are not guaranteed to dodge them. I think if they...
Hypothetically.
What, sorry?
It's hypothetically, like...
Well, yeah, in theory, but the way that they did things at Reykjavik is that they took the top team from NA, top team from EMEA, and they made sure that they had... that they weren't... Oh, what did they do? They took...
Yeah, they were
and they seeded them on the opposite side of the bracket.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and so I think it's very likely this time around that they do the same kind of thing, but then they just did it kind of randomly from there. Like, you had the second team from EMEA fought Sentinels really early on in the bracket, so I could see even an SMB who made it to the finals, or Ascend, who most people would have thought of as the best EMEA team. I could easily see them being able
I'm assuming, though, they would...
to get in a bracket with Sentinels.
Wouldn't it surely be the number 1 and number 4?
Nope.
Okay.
That is not how they did it at Reykjavik. I'm not assuming that's how they're going to do it.
Well,
for
yeah,
Berlin.
but I mean, but there's 4 teams from EMEA this time. So I mean, like, you take the number 1 from NA, and they have G2, and then
you're making too much sense.
and
it
then
won't
in the other
work
one,
like that.
okay.
I'm telling you, I don't think
I
it's
might be making
work
too
like
much
that.
sense.
You're
I might be making too much sense. I mean, it
sense.
is just chaos, because then where do you put Vision Strikers, and where do you put like Keyd, and then where do you put Bren Esports? It's just at that point, it's just chaos. Yeah, I don't know. Fucking Lord knows. We'll see.
Let's move on a little bit here. We already discussed Ascend and SMB when we talked last week, because they'd already made it through the qualifiers in the upper bracket form. So I'm sure when we do our previews, we'll have more to say about those teams. But I think this episode, it bears more relevance talking about G2. They were the 4th team to be able to qualify. They have that 4th seed. They had a rough run through that lower part of the bracket after losing in the upper, getting slapped actually by SMB. But they did manage to claw through with a 2-1 win over Giants, and then ended up going down to another close game against Gambit. What was your read on G2 here? How confident do you feel that they're going to be able to perform? A lot of what we were talking about previously was this team has buckets of potential. Do you still feel that way when you watch this squad?
I'm starting to feel less of that, because I was hoping that they would be more impressive during this qualifier than they ended up being. I was hoping that they would have made more progress between this qualifier and the previous one, and I don't think that they did, which leads me to believe maybe there's a little bit less potential there than we had assumed, given the makeup of the roster. I was just hoping for a bit more from them, honestly. And at this point, they feel like they feel like the team from the 2 major regions of NA and EU that is more ripe to get upset by an unsuspecting,
F4Q or
I mean,
Havan Liberty,
I don't know about
Vivo
F4Q,
Keyd,
but
like,
maybe, but some, or even like
Crew,
but genuinely one of those teams, maybe not even beating G2, but like giving them a serious scare, I think is very possible. I mean, they still have a ton of talent on the roster, and Nuki's still crazy, but yeah, I was hoping for I was just hoping for more. There was a lot left to be desired from G2 for me. And I think that they got, I'm not going to just say that they had it's not that they had an easy ride there, but I think that their bracket was less dangerous than the one above them. It was
you mean qualifying through Gambit, for example?
Or even Liquid. Like, I don't know. I don't think Guild and Giants, they're okay, but that's not too much of a test. So really, I think the hope is just that they improve in these coming weeks. Because I at the moment, I don't think that they're also... I mean, also, there's been obviously a massive investment into that team, and they need results now, given how many roster changes they made in regards to just being able to be in even the last chance qualifier for EU.
I think they are guaranteed to be in the last chance
are they
qualifier.
guaranteed just because they made it?
I think now that they
points?
made it, they are, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, that's good news for them at the very least.
Yeah. But still, the organization wants more than that. They want to go to champions. At the minimum, they want to represent Europe at champions. So, I mean, Kellogg's had a nasty round like this, but this was one of the only bright spots in a game where they got demolished by SMB, and then they're straight down to the lower bracket. And they actually did get scared by Giants. I got scared watching as well, because I want this G2 team to play at Berlin, because I still do believe that they have more to show. And I think other teams are kind of tapped out. You know, I think Giants have been on a heater. Maybe they have a bit more to show, but I'm not as excited about seeing them represent EMEA. I think Liquid are pretty tapped out with what they gave in this tournament. I don't think they have too much more to give, but obviously still a pretty decent team. I still do think this G2 squad has got something more. But I agree with you, Wyatt. They had a month between that grand final against Ascend and these games, and the development did not showcase a month's worth of progress, especially when you consider they have less than a month between now and Berlin. If they make the same pace of progress, they ain't looking too hot. They're just looking all right. They're looking like an okay representative.
I mean, thinking back to like the what qualified them for the playoffs, wasn't it pretty decent opponents that they made it through? Like they made it through FPX, Fnatic, Guild, right? Throughout that entire thing. So like, this was harder competition once they got to SMB, once they got to Gambit and whatnot, but they made it through who they needed to. Giants was playing really, really well throughout the entire, well, not necessarily like highest quality, but they were still very strong. It's not like you could just waltz over them and beat them, which obviously was not the case. So I don't know. I see potential in this team, but I don't think that it's as fat. Like, I don't think that it could have come as fast as you guys are expecting it to have come, right? 2 weeks of wait time between the last tournament and now.
Well, there was a month. That's 4 weeks.
Oh, it was a whole month, right?
Yeah.
You're right. Still, like, when a team first forms, it's you get just basically people playing off of instinct and whatnot, and then the structure comes in, right? And whenever that structure comes in, it does take a while to fit the people back into something that, you know, they can start to believe in and whatnot. So I don't necessarily think that it's not more is going to come from them. At Berlin, maybe it'll be different. I think they have young players. I think they have people that they really can develop. As a matter of like them getting results, yeah, that might be a little bit of a worrisome situation at Berlin. But I didn't see this team and think like, oh well, they're gonna get upset, like they look bad, right? I saw a team that Kellogg's still doing what he needs to be doing. I saw Coldamenta really starting to play very, very well within their system and clutching and just providing a ton of support to everybody. Avova still looks really, really good. And then the other parts that were kind of a little lackluster to me was Nuki and Mixwell wasn't the same as he was in the previous thing. The previous qualifier. So if he plays up to that level again, where he's stomping on Fnatic twice in a row in clutch situations and acing them in final rounds and stuff, like because that didn't happen this time around. That didn't at all.
I mean, I think Mixwell was in rare form in that last qualifier. I mean, by any regard, those are some pretty unbelievable series that he was playing on the Viper in that qualifier. Yeah, it's hard to replicate that for anyone. To be clear, it's not a knock specifically at him. That was just a crazy level. I could buy that this is a period of growing pains where, in that previous one, they're playing more instinctually. The team is newer, and they're just playing off that. Now they're trying to introduce a level of structure and figure out what they really want to do, and there are growing pains associated with that. I can buy all of that. I just was hoping to see some little things a bit more ironed out than they were. And honestly, a lot of it still to me comes down to Kellogg's. I think he's a great player, but I feel like there's a disconnect still that exists between Kellogg's and the operation of the rest of the team.
To me, it's very evident when you look at him play on Ascent, where he looks like he just knows what he wants to do at all times. And then you compare it to some of the other maps and he looks a little uncomfortable. And if they just got him up to, if they got all the rest of their map pool comfortable with Kellogg's up to the same level it is on Ascent, they have that potential to step up a whole other level, I think.
I hard disagree. I do not want to see them do what they did on Ascent, basically give reins to Kellogg's and have him go into a site every single round. That is not, like, sure, it works against Giants, but that shit is going to get stomped when they go up against a different team. You know, like, it'll get hard.
Their game plan elsewhere is to try and do similar stuff, but without that same level of coordination. I don't think they have the developed game plan on their attack sides that's outside of just having Kellogg's entry into positions. I feel like that's what they've built this team around. Like when you watch them on Bind, they try and do the same stuff, but they're really disjointed with it.
Yeah. That wasn't necessarily my point, that I want Kellogg's not to entry or something like that. I want them to try more. Like on Ascent, it definitely felt like he is just literally like, okay, I know how to take these sites. I'm gonna get in the smokes. I'm gonna get the information. The way that he was dashing on A is literally him he's going up specifically out of his smoke so he can land in his smoke, but he's also checking all the corners at the same time rather than just dashing straight into his smoke. And then he's playing super slow for the rest of his team to come in. That doesn't take coordination in my mind. Like, it's just Kellogg's and the rest of his team is playing off the information that he gives them. Sure, that, you know, follow up is nice, but it's not like they go in with a plan at the very beginning. And relying on that is going to be very difficult when you go up against, for example, Gambit, where you're just gonna have Nats who's just playing in his cage and not being able to be spotted by where Kellogg's is coming, you know. So the other ways to give him an op or something like that, and like he was doing on Icebox a lot, is something that I want more to be explored, and not just the full inting into sites, you know.
Okay. Can we take a look at the G2 Gambit game on VLR? Because that game does challenge the idea that G2 didn't have a great run or whatever. It's a 2-1 game from Gambit. And again, it's one that Gambit might consider themselves a little lucky to be able to escape from as well. Yeah. If you look at the how this one goes out, it's Ascent, Icebox, Bind. Those are all great maps for Gambit. Obviously, Gambit crushed them on defense side again when it comes to Ascent. The defense is just phenomenal. And G2's best map. But then on Icebox, Gambit can't do anything on their attack side, and you've got this same kind of idea of Gambit just getting to a 2-2 situation, and then, okay, Bind, unfortunately, has not been the greatest for G2 recently, and it has been a great map, and that still goes to OT. So, I don't know. Well, I was very impressed with this Bind performance from G2 compared to what they'd shown in the past. I think this was where I really saw good performances come out of Nookie in particular, and I think it was like a Vova or something on this map ended up being good for them. I can't exactly remember. But they did well to keep this game even, and I felt like this game, I was annoyed at Gambit's attack sides, but I was still impressed at what G2 was able to give. Yeah. I just wanted them to be able to I wanted them to at least be on that level this time around in all of their games. And I felt like the game that they'd played against SMB was way below that level. And so if the game against SMB had never happened, maybe I would have had a better view of G2 overall, whereas, okay, they actually played a really close game against the team that ended up winning it all. It's weird. EMEA has so many teams that have clear problems and yet certain parts of their game that are excellent.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, it's not that G2 didn't have it's not that G2 had a bad run or an easy run. I don't want that to get misconstrued. They did what they needed to do to qualify, which is it's respectable just in itself. But for the caliber of the players on the roster, the investment behind it, the idea behind it, I think it demands more.
Okay.
So I am going to demand more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other teams that is in a weird spot in EMEA is Team Liquid. In terms of the people, I think it's pretty interesting there in terms of like the idea of demanding more and like the expectations on their shoulders. The expectations are frequently surpassed by Liquid. And yet I still feel like there's more to give for this team. They lose to Na'Vi early on. That's obviously something that they wouldn't have not been happy with. But then beating Oxygen's decent result, beating Forza's expected. And then, like we said, they almost managed to upset Gambit and qualify for Berlin. I would consider this again to be somewhat of a slim overperformance for Liquid compared to what we were expecting of them. But I still hold by the idea that this team looks like it's tapped out. It looks like this current roster has nowhere further to go. What are your impressions of Liquid? Do you feel like this team in its current iteration still has further growing room? Still could have made, like a deep run had they made it to Berlin? Has further potential to make it to become perhaps the best team in the EMEA again?
No. I think I think this was the final. They've actually now they've tapped out. This is it. I think. I don't see how they can comfortably approach the last. I mean, they have to be in the last chance qualifier. Yeah.
Yeah, they are definitely.
I can't see how how they will feel comfortable approaching the last chance qualifier as is. I mean, surely not, right? I think the level of competition in the EMEA is too high. There are too many good teams. There are going to be too many good. There are going to be too many good teams in that last chance qualifier to compete against. That if they're relying on the level of play they had, and then this time the power of fucking God trying to miracle them through couldn't bring them to Berlin. I mean, I think it's kind of over, right? I mean, they were pulling out fucking miracles against Gambit, and it wasn't enough in the end. And this was against, I think, a Gambit that were playing well, but not at their best. Certainly not at their best, even within this tournament that we saw them playing at.
Sure.
Yeah, look, I mean, and Gambit could very well be a team that's in the last chance qualifier. So,
easily, yeah.
Listen, I think that this is probably this was probably the last hurrah for this iteration of these 5 on Liquid. I mean, I like some of the changes they were making in regards to the roles that were being played. Listen, I like when Scream's on duels. I like when he's on stage too. I like seeing Soulcast when he's on Raze. I think he plays with a lot of confidence when he's on Raze. I think actually overall Soulcast has just been... I actually really liked watching him in this tournament, period.
Right.
I think that he's made a lot of strides as a player in regards to the confidence that he plays with, and it's helped him significantly as time has gone on.
Sure.
But listen, there are clear role problems within the team that have always existed. They've never had a Sova. It has always been an issue. I don't see how they can continue with this 5. I don't think that it's going to be enough to get them to champions through the last chance qualifier. I think at this point, it looks like they've ran out of miracle juice.
I mean, because they keep pulling more miracle juice.
But they lost, though. That's the difference.
Right.
They didn't win this time.
Yeah.
They
still had the miracle juice, but it wasn't
enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough.
What do you think, Balla? Can they pull more out of the deities?
I think you guys asking for a lot of volatility in these teams. You guys are implying that you want a roster change for Liquid before last chance qualifier. Is that what you guys are asking for? Because I think that's ludicrous.
No, I'm saying I don't think that they. Do you think they feel like they should just continue as the same 5, still moving forward to last chance qualifier within however when is that, October? In like another month and a couple weeks with this 5, do you think they feel comfortable qualifying, winning? By the way, they have to win the last chance qualifier to get to champions. Do you think they will comfortably keep this 5 and go?
I don't think it matters what they feel. I think that's literally what they have to do. I think them making a change would literally just kill their chances at last chance qualifier, right? Like that's how I would feel about it. In any significant change, right? And any single one of these players at this point, minus maybe Cryptics, is going to be a significant change to the team, right? Soulcast has been insane. Link has been insane. You're not taking Scream away, and you're not taking Yampy, who's just started IGLing for the team, right? So, like, I just think that what they need to do is work their ass off for last chance qualifier, and that's the only chance that they'll have to make it towards champions. And I think they'll probably feel the same way. Maybe they all like, oh, well, I don't know if this roster can do it. They might have whatever, but the reality is they can't do anything else. They just have to go out and win. That's the only choice. And sticking together, I think, is better than anywhere. Like, that is the best thing that you could do. I think we've always seen it. Gambit is stuck together. Like a bunch of different teams have stuck together, and we always credit that. We always credit that as being good. And when Team Liquid have an opportunity to just buckle down and play through it, you have to remember too that this is not like they've had two stages where they've been playing. One stage where they played fantastic, which is stage 2, and then stage 3. Sure, it's not necessarily the best of the best, but they stuff does need to be worked on.
But do you think it looks
over time.
replicable? Do you think that level of success from stage 2 looks replicable for them? Because I don't think it does.
I mean, you're asking basically like, does it look replicable when we don't know what the work that they can do can be, right? It's not like we could see what the ceilings are for the team, and
we've seen this roster for a long time now with with and before Yempi.
I don't. Yeah, we do credit teams for sticking together when it's a good idea and they work things out, but that's just not an exclusive truth that sticking together is always good. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that have stuck together and didn't qualify for Berlin that were at Iceland. There are a lot of teams that need to make changes that hadn't made changes or waited way too long to do it and aren't going to be at Berlin.
Well, think about some teams that did make changes and it was successful for them. Envy added Yay. There's no player out there that's like a Yay that can be added to Liquid. That's not even an option.
But that's not even what they need.
No, but that doesn't work as a comparison, right? Is what I'm saying. Who are the other teams? I mean, G2 made some shit or made a brand new roster. That's just a literal new roster.
Yeah.
SMB's a brand new roster. They managed to do incredibly well, but we're not talking about like some super team being made here. What's a reasonable comparison of like a team that made a couple of changes? I feel like Fnatic is the closest example, actually, where they replaced Mo and Shaq and tried to add Durka and Magnum in.
There's more than, there's like Cloud9, like you could talk about Andbox, you could talk about maybe an EU who's made some random stuff like Vitality and who's it, BDS? Did BDS make any changes? I think they changed one player. Like there's been all sorts of these. I don't know.
Yeah.
NIP added Eccles and
that was kind of out of their control.
I guess it's not necessarily my point. Like, we want teams to stick together always, but I don't know. Liquid still play. Like we're talking about this specific tournament too, and it's not like they played terribly. They've almost made it. They literally were a couple rounds away from making it to Berlin, and then all of a sudden we're talking completely different about them.
Well,
I
don't think I would be talking differently about them, even if they'd made it to Berlin. I think like even when the beginning of this roster was made, they don't have the right pieces to theoretically succeed. They are succeeding in practice because their players are skilled and they can pull off ridiculous rounds. But the way in which they're doing it does not seem like a consistent plan. Liquid don't have great setups. Liquid don't have these really thorough strategic plays. They have a couple fantastic players that can get them out of anything. And they're like throwing the IGL position around. They don't have a dedicated Sova. There's some clear flaws with this team that I think need to get fixed at some point. Even if they stick together with the last chance qualifier, they're looking towards the 2022 circuit. And at that point, it becomes an inevitability that this team has got to make a change, I feel. But maybe it takes a long time to find the right piece that fits in. But I think from what we've seen from this 5-man squad so far, that there are serious holes that you're not going to be able to just jiggle pieces around and try and find the solution for by being creative. I think there is a personnel issue there that isn't that the players are bad. It's that you don't have the balance that you need of people on the team. There isn't anybody that wants to pick. There's like 3 duelists that you've got on the team, and you're trying to find roles for them, and there's no IGL, and there's no supporting Sova-esque kind of player that wants to pick that up. If you were formulating a roster, you wouldn't try and build it in this way. So I don't think it makes sense to try and keep a roster if it's not randomly dominated.
I feel like they have been working their asses off though to try and make it work with this.
And I think they've done a great job. I think they and Sliggy have done a fucking phenomenal job. When you look on paper at this team, they're outperforming what you should expect from them on paper, I think. There's no.
I would agree because I think that it's just it's good players, but they don't have the requisite pieces for a more cohesive unit. Look, they could keep the same 5 and go to last chance qualifier, and maybe they make it through. I don't think it's particularly likely. And then for 2022, they still inevitably have to change something, I think. I
you
guess
have a large break, though, between...
Yeah.
If you didn't make it to Champions, you have a significant break there to try and fix stuff.
I guess my wider point is it feels inevitable that they're going to have to make a change, whether it be before last chance qualifier or for 2022.
So you'd rather
they will be making a change. Are they interested in like a trade offer? You get a player before last chance qualifier, and maybe it triggers like a honeymoon peaking at the right time, things are working out, or it's just genuinely you get a guy and finally the roles make sense and things are just way better. Things have been elevated by some extent. And then also honeymoon period, trade offer, you get that, but potential risk. Maybe it doesn't work and you could have just kept the 5 and had a slightly better result. You know, I feel like that's kind of where they're at, right? Do we take the risk in changing someone now, or do we try to continue to work with what we have, see if we can go on a great run and make it through in last chance, and then do a move maybe in 2022 if we don't? I feel like that's the situation that they're presented with right now. It's not do we or don't we, it's when do we? You know what I mean?
Sure. What do you think needs to be addressed in this team? If we're thinking about them either before last chance qualifier or afterwards as well, to me, the IGL position being mixed around is a clear problem with them, but it's a problem with a bunch of different teams. It doesn't seem like an easy fix whatsoever. And also the fact that nobody really wants to play Sova, so they have Soulcast playing Sky a lot to try and mitigate that. But Soulcast is also one of their duelist players that plays Raze. No one else on the team does. And they haven't really found a good position for Yampy to play whatsoever. And his decision-making still looks pretty lackluster, like he's a pretty new player to the game. But he's also their emotional leader and their IGL. So you've got these 3 issues that are all intertwined and very difficult to try and resolve on the team.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious one direction you take is you try and look for an excellent initiator player, right? I mean, you get someone who can play the Sova, and if you want to run Sova Sky, you can have Soulcast play Sky, and maybe you have Yampy pick up the Sentinel as to like when he was playing Killjoy a bit, you know? And I do think that was actually, when he was doing that, looked pretty good on the Killjoy. Even opping on Killjoy was pretty fine.
The old steal
he was finding some success with that. Yeah, genuinely though, but I do think he was finding some success with that. And I think it's maybe a little bit more viable in a world with a less expensive op. But
they've also tried Yampy playing Smokes, and Yampy looks okay on Smokes. This is all assuming that you want to keep
but
Yampy
then it's
around as well.
do you want to keep Yampy because he can be the IGL, but then they've just intertwined so many roles. It's hard to figure out what direction you even go in, right? I mean, I think he's a good player, but unfortunately, it might just not be the guy to fit on the team. Is at this point might be Cryptix. If you want to have Yampy play Sentinel, maybe, and then look for a real Sova main who's going to come in and play Sova excellently for the team, and then you leave, Scream as the duelist and have Soulcast be whatever second duelist Sky.
I think that's what most people would assume.
That it probably is the most obvious move, right? And I think Cryptix is a good player, but I think unfortunately, it's like anyone on the team. You're kind of just caught in this situation where the roster and the roles that people like to play are not the roles that are needed.
But then you're also throwing somebody onto the Sentinel role that hasn't previously played that much of it and just assuming they're going to be better than Cryptix as well.
Yeah.
Which
when
I think
he did, though, I do think Yampy was pretty good when he was on Killjoy.
Yeah, he was mostly just opping, though.
Yeah.
That was what the value that you brought. Yeah.
Yep.
But
I listen.
I'm not sure
it was
that
like a stopgap for Yampy. Like, remember he was just inting on Jett and stuff like that, and then it was like, let's just put him on Killjoy and just like keep him back. Like, you can't do that on this character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at this point though, if you followed Balla's advice and you were like, okay, stick with the 5 people for last chance qualifiers, it's your only hope of being able to get there. Make the change afterwards if you don't qualify, right? I think that's actually quite a logical thing that most, the people in Liquid management would do as well, because you need a large amount of time to find the right person. So if then you have the whole of October to, I don't know when the VCT begins, January or whatever. But if you have 3 months to try and trial and find a player, why don't you just get a Sova IGL and Yampy is relieved of his responsibilities to do that? Why would you try and force the guy that wasn't originally going to be your IGL to still be your IGL if you have the pickings of a player? If you have months to try and search for somebody who fits the team, you might as well find the perfect thing you need, which is like a Boaster, a Coldamenta, a Redgar, or whatever. Someone who can play that Sova role for your team and can also IGL and try and give you guys some direction. That's the player they need. They're rare as fuck, but if you have the time to go and find them, that's the hidden gem that you're looking for somewhere within the European scene that can boost this team. And at that point, you already have Scream and Soulcast who can play Sky and Duelist. So what does Yampy afford to the team at that point? I feel like that is the direction that this team is more likely to... I mean, maybe not more likely because Yampy's a big name and I don't think they'll want to drop him. But I don't think the Yampy experiment has particularly worked. And if you have time to find another IGL, it's only his opping that he really is offering you at that point. I mean, he just complicates the roles in other ways.
Yeah, I think that there is some sense to be made from both options. But that kind of goes back to the original problem, which is which thing do you choose? Because everything is just so jumbled, which also part of why it's remarkable that they continue to go so deep in all of these events. I mean, it does feel like I mean, I know you've said this before, Josh, that they're one move away from...
I really think so. I think they're one move away from being maybe the best team in the EMEA. But I think they're one move away, and I think they're going to be hard stuck until they make like the perfect move. There's still so much. There's so many challenges for them to navigate. And if you simplify things and remove some of those challenges and free the players up, my God, these guys could be good. Like really fucking good. Link's fantastic. Scream's obviously fantastic as well. Soulcast when he's playing his best is just it's gorgeous to watch. And they have a really smart system a lot of the time too. Or at least they try to when things are working well. Okay, let's move on from talking about EMEA though. Let's go for our Brazilian reporter. He's been down in the trenches recently.
Oh, we're starting with Crew.
Oh, we're starting with Crew.
Yeah.
Well, we're not starting in Brazil then. Bronzil, haha. Crew is who we're talking about now. We're going to talk about the LATAM team that has qualified here. Yeah. Crew. They are one of only 3 teams that are repeat returners to Masters. Those being Sentinels, Crazy Raccoon, and Crew are the 3 teams that are returning from Reykjavik. Sentinels because they're the best team in the world, and so they're still the best in their region, and Crew and Crazy Raccoon because their region is really weak, so they're able to still get through again, even though Crazy Raccoon came in second this time. Crew actually had an all-right showing at Iceland. For anyone who didn't watch, they got stomped by Fnatic to begin with, and it looked disastrous, but then they beat the second team in Brazil 2-0, I think it was, and then they lost to Liquid. So they lost to the 2 EMEA teams that finished like second and fourth, but I don't think it was a catastrophic appearance. They still looked better than a number of teams at the event.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think they're going to be better this time around? Are you buying into the hype about Crew winning Berlin? This
is where I stand with I think a lot of the quote unquote minor regions. Is the issue is I think Crew have improved, but the level of competition has also gone way up. So that could be the primary issue for them. I liked watching their game that qualified them in the grand finals where they beat Australs, and I think that they have some pretty impressive play in some regard. They have some nice executes. Specifically, their fast executes are good. They're well thought out. They have well thought out utility on those plays. But it was whenever the rounds were slowing down against Australs that things devolved. They didn't really know. They were unable to succeed against when they were faced with a defensive op. They were struggling to navigate that. They were struggling to effectively get into sites on slowed down rounds against better counter utility against an Astra. But there were some positives still regardless. And on their own defense, Listen, I could see them maybe on their defense throwing some teams off for a little bit because they do play really aggressive. I mean, Kurt, if you want to pull up like against Australs round 8 on Ascent, I think that was one I marked down where it's like, they're just like, they're going for all types of individual plays and shit all over the place on defense. And now the question to me as well is, okay, is this just confidence online because they know that they're going to beat Australs and qualify? Or is this just the genuine confidence they have? Because I think that was a key issue for some of the teams in Iceland. Notably, I think the Brazilian teams played with so little confidence compared to how they played online. And that was probably their biggest downfall. So when I'm watching this, I'm just thinking, okay, is this just because they know they're beating Australs, or is this actually how they're going to approach the game? Like sort of how, I can't think of the name of the team, but the team with Patafan.
X10.
X10, how they, despite being, on paper a worse team than a lot of the teams, they still played with a lot of confidence, right?
Oh, yeah. Patapan was sage-walling himself into mid on us.
Which is what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to play with the same level of confidence, even though the competition has increased. So can Crew do that? I don't know. We'll see. But I think they have there's some good qualities about the team. I think that they're playing really on meta, which is great. They're running Astra all the time. They're running Sky all the time. They're playing off the Sky pretty well. But I think the level of competition has just gone up too much for them to do anything too significant. Can they still probably beat the teams from the other minor regions? Yeah, definitely. But I think it would be very difficult for them to compete against. I mean, they just have, if you look at like how far pushed up Nagzed is, he was holding B main with the op. He's just all the way down in mid, flanking these guys behind the Astra wall after their Sky just flashed himself out and faced on Cat. And he's just killing them. It's like, they play quite aggressively on defense, but at least in these games against Australs. So, we'll see.
I saw when I was watching the game as well, I saw Nagzed do that a lot where he's like flanking with an op because he just knows he's not going to get punished. Those are the kind of things I think that worry me when I watch minor regions play, where you see people making objectively poorer decisions that don't get punished, so they build bad habits, I think, of stuff that they can get away with. But yeah,
especially because when I'm watching these games, I get the feeling that they are very unconfident in their reads of what's going on at the point in games. Like you watch on their defensive sides, for example, they're constantly off of any information, like indecisive in spawn. They're like rotating and then they're not rotating and then they're rotating and then they're not rotating, like over and over and over. And that to me tells me that when somebody makes these aggressive plays that are not necessarily good on paper, specifically when there's a team that is not necessarily playing with the information correctly, that hurts. Because if you see him pushing B main because he has information from the rest of his team, like there's Sky flashes and people are getting info by whatever, seeing people or hearing noise and whatnot, then it's different. But if you're also not playing off the information right, then it's very, very scary.
Yeah, they've made 0 roster changes, right? Since Iceland?
BNJ is gone.
What, sorry?
BNJ was theirs. BNJ was like their Sova.
Oh, he was their Sova player that played Raze on Split, right? Yeah, I forgot about that. I see.
So they replaced him with their now Raze player, like what's his name?
Kesnet.
Is getting covered right now. Kisnet. There you go.
Kesnet. Yeah.
I mean, Kurt, could you play round 7 from that Haven map? It was just I don't know. They have they have some cool executes that if they just go right into them, I could see them taking some rounds because they have some pretty good coordination. They have some pretty cool ideas. Also, I think maybe if they run into some teams that are, if we discover if there's sort of an Iceland situation where an on-meta team plays an off-meta team, that there's kind of a booming. I could see maybe something like that happening. They are playing like Jett, Skies, Astra all the time. If they play against a team that's like Omen and Breach or like some shit like that, which there are teams doing that, I could see them maybe getting like a cheeky map, maybe, but yeah, it doesn't seem too likely. I mean, this was just a pretty cool execute. I think they actually end up losing this round to another good defensive Astra wall. There was actually some pretty good Astra play from the region. I was impressed by that. But like they put up the Astra wall, and then they flash into B. They have the Jett dash in top left to watch a push in there, and then they Sage wall the right side, and then at the same time their Killjoy lurked into sewer to put the lockdown down. It was a cool idea. Got boomed by the defensive Astra wall on the retake. This is one of the better rounds from Australs too, honestly. But it was a cool execute idea.
Cool
like
idea.
They have some cool ideas.
They do, yeah.
But they're going to be hard pressed to get an upset win in a BO3.
Where did they
against this
face? Where did they finish at Iceland? What was their actual placement? Was it like 9th, 10th, 7th, 8th?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, because they beat Sharks, so it was 7. So that was in the lower round, and that was when team got eliminated.
Yeah,
so they got 7th, 8th.
You're right. Okay, so 7th, 8th. That, I mean, 7th, 8th is going to be impossible for them to get at Berlin.
Unless their group is, unless they end up in a group that's like, because they won LATAM, they have like
the highest possible
Sentinels
seeding.
and then also like 2 minor region teams with them somehow. I don't know if that's even possible, because theoretically there should be an EU team in every group, right? 1 per group, theoretically, right? But evidently, supposedly there could be multiple EMEA teams in one group.
Apparently there can be 2.
So if that is the case, listen, if they got into a group that was like Sentinels because they won NA, and then 2 other minor regions, like the winner of SEA and then F4Q or something, maybe they could make it.
Right.
In this, but if they're in a group with an EU team and an NA team, or even EU and Vision Strikers, something like that,
Yeah.
I don't see them making it through. I just don't think there's any way.
Yeah. But this I think brings us to an interesting topic as well, which is that how do you value success from a minor region team like this that has little chance of making it through the groups? Is it about just being able to beat the other minor region team, the one that's likely to be with them? Is it about having good performances against the EMEA squads or the NA squads, even though you lose? How should LATAM fans kind of evaluate their team's performance when it's a small sample size against very good opponents? What kind of things should they be looking for, do you think, Balla?
They must win, no question. Otherwise, cut all the players, blah, 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 blah.
Yep. Agreed.
I think over basically beating the last time they went to an international event. I think that's how, as a lowly NA fan throughout my years of 1.6 and whatnot, that is how I treat it. It's like, can we just please do better than we did last time? Let's make it out of groups once. Let's make it past 7th, 8th. I think for crew is the best. Well, obviously it's a 16-team tournament this time, but
yeah,
that's the kind of level that I want to see them, right? Maybe win 2 matches instead of just 1. That sort of thing. It's like let's get some improvement. Maybe for crew it's slightly higher because the hype is higher, I think, for some reason.
I think they're trolls. I have a lot of people in my chat who are just obsessed with. I think it's ironic, but it might at this point be post-ironic.
Sure.
Hyping of crew. I think it's because they're such underdog dark horse team.
I would like to see them. I know that crew can beat the other minor region teams. This time, though, I would like to see them at least have a close game on a map against one of the lower EU or NA teams, like whatever, G2, 100 Thieves, something like that. Get a couple close maps in.
Or even take an upset map. That would be huge.
That would be huge. But because I last time against Liquid 2, they just got boomed.
Yeah.
Those games weren't close against Liquid and Fnatic on any of the 4 maps. So I would like to see them at this time. I think if they could get a close game in, that would be a pretty good result.
I'll tell you what as well.
Be a step
if
up.
they get put in a group with either of the Brazilian teams, that's also going to be a win for them. If they're able to beat a Vivo Keyd or a Havan Liberty, that's a win. That's a regional rivalry, and that's like a semi-minor region. It's not as low rated as an SEA or a Japan, but it's still, it's still within their achievable grasp. We'll just have to see how the groups lay out, I think.
Or even beating F4Q.
Sure.
Would be a good win.
That'd be a great win. Yeah, that'd be a great win. I think that'd be a really interesting game to watch as well. Let's move on to talking about the Brazilian teams, though, because Brazil absolutely flopped when they went to Iceland. In terms of their performance, I'm not just talking about Vikings, who we rated pretty highly and did middling. They came like 5th.
Yeah, but middling in like it wasn't a good middling.
No, it wasn't a good middling.
Like,
it was we just about got to 5th.
Yeah.
Whereas we were hoping they'd be a serious top 4 team. I'm also talking about Sharks, who bombed out in last place despite being the second best team in Brazil. So the average performance of the region was way below what was expected of them. You could argue that Sharks had it a little rough in terms of matching up against Newturn, who were number 3, and then Crew, who are actually semi-decent. They didn't get a chance to, beat up on a Crazy Raccoon or an X10 or something like that, but still not impressive in the slightest. Is there any more hope for Brazil this time around? They have this Vivo Keyd squad who are like... Wyatt keeps talking about the fact that he wants Brazil to form a super team.
Yes.
This is not a super team, but they're at least a combination of a couple of different squads that had good players, and they've tried to put them together. It's a super team in the same way that like a Furia or a Vikings was supposed to be one.
It's not really a super team. It's more of just we formed a team and we're trying to make it to land, and then also... I mean, there's some beautiful irony. There is some potent irony in them getting Zhou last minute from Gamelanders, who got cut from Gamelanders.
Yeah.
And then they just qualify with him playing Sentinel. I mean, it's just...
this roster is super interesting because you do have like Heat, who is... he's been talked about for ages as being a superstar level player.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy... He boomed Gamelanders out of the last qualifier with Havan Liberty.
Yeah.
And now is on this team and just... I mean, he just dominated the entirety of this tournament. He's clearly the best duelist in the region right now. And yeah, I mean, I do keep talking about that Brazil needs a super team because Turkey made a super team, pretty good results. Korea have a super team. They look really fucking good. And they pretty much have a super team in Sentinels. I mean, it's just, I think though, more so than for NA and EU, I think it's especially necessary for the minor regions development right now that the top players coordinate and with some organization
show the others how to
guiding
play
it. Yeah, that something comes together because it's unfortunate, honestly. I think that there's so many cool, really, really talented players in Brazil, and they're just spread. They're just a thin layer of butter spread across a large piece of toast.
Like too much butter over so much bread. I feel thin, Frodo.
Well done. I'm glad you picked that one up.
I do, but I want to give a little bit of background.
I know if I ever give a Lord of the Rings reference, you'll be right there with the exact quote.
That wasn't even the exact quote. I think I got it the wrong way around, but it was close enough. I do want to give a bit of background info though on some of the Vivo Keyd players as well, because people might have seen Muriz and Vixen as well. Yeah, those are the... No, actually, am I messing that up? It's Muriz and Vixen, right? Came from that team together before. What the hell were they called? Pain Gaming, I think it was, right?
Yes.
That were previously somewhere towards the top of the Brazilian scene. And people who follow Overwatch might be aware of Muriz because he used to play for the Brazilian World Cup team in Overwatch League. Or not in Overwatch League, but in the Overwatch scene. Mm-hmm. And so they've combined those couple of players, like a solid duo there, with Joe, the old IGL of Gamelanders, who was a poor performing player individually, but had some level of IGL experience. And then Heat, this star player, and then NTK, who I can't remember where he's from actually.
Oh, Christ.
But they have combined bits and pieces from various different rosters across Brazil
NTK
to try and form
on the same. I'm just looking it up now. It's a team called Disimpic. I don't. That seems like a bad word. Not gonna lie. But it was NTK, Muriz, and that last guy that you mentioned.
Oh, Vixen as well.
Vixen.
Right.
They were all on that team together. Not Pain. So
right.
More than that.
Yeah. I mean, they ended up winning out the tournament, though. For the majority of it, Havan Liberty were just pretty dominant through the upper bracket. I mean, the way I was gonna frame this for people who haven't watched these games or from other regions, of the two teams that made it, Vivo Keyd and Havan Liberty, Vivo Keyd are the more loose, free-flowing, NA-ish kind of team where they put a lot of stock into their duelists. They're putting in a lot of effort into. They're going to try and set up Heat to pop the fuck off, and Heat is pretty unreal. He is a nasty good player. He really does look like the best duelist in the region right now. So listen, at the very least, no matter how Brazil perform, unless Heat shows up with zero confidence at the event, he should look like the impressive player that he is.
Right.
Which, listen, that is a worry because I really do think that the thing that, at least in the case of Vikings, I think the thing that hurt them the most at Iceland was that they played with no confidence at all.
Sure.
But Heat is, I don't know, at least from what I've seen from like Brazilian fans, people talking about him, he's, I don't know, he's more of like he's like a younger, cockier kind of shit-talking guy who's cocky as hell. Which honestly, I like that. I think that's what a lot of these teams, that's what some of these teams gonna use. Let me tell you, he is a really impressive duelist in all regards of his jet play. Like his rifling is excellent. His sprays are really are excellent. His opping is good. He has great sense of when to use the util. He's a genuine star player, and they have good supports around him with NTK and Miriz when he's on the sky. They're good at setting him up. And they're a bit more of a loose, free-flowing team in that regard. I think the highlights of them are they have good fundamentals. They're effective at playing off of each other, trading off of each other nicely, and they seem pretty adaptive in the middle of rounds in doing so. Like if someone, whether it be Heat or NTK, whoever wants to go if they're going for a play, their teammates are ready to support them, which is nice. And I think that's the highlight really of Vivo Keyd. But are they the hope of Brazil? I mean, I guess so because they won, but
Did they beat their lower bracket run is insane. I'm just looking at this, dude. Gamelanders, they beat Sharks, who they already lost to. Then they beat Vikings, and then they beat Fury. Like, if that's not the teams that outsiders think is the best of Brazil, then I don't know. So I think they have to be the hope of Brazil because they just shut down the rest of the hope right there. They just all the hope is in that lower bracket. They're all gone.
Kurt, click on Vivo Keyd versus Gamelanders, the first lower round, and go to the last map. In regular time, Heat dropped fucking 37 on Gamelanders in this game. It was, I mean, Kurt, I sent you a couple clips on Discord of just a couple of the moments from that game. I mean, he just farmed them. He is a pretty outrageous player. Like, I do think Vivo Keyd have some upset potential in that if he performs at the level that he's showing here, and comes in with the same confidence, there is a world where they take a map off of a team because he just has an outlandish performance.
Right.
I mean, I think it's in this round even, he gets an ace. He's opping it long, gets a kill jumping out a window, and then, I mean, you'll see. He just proceeds to kill everybody with daggers. It's just, I mean, he is just so dominant in this tournament. I mean, that was even the difference maker in the end in the finals. He dropped like 25 kills average on every map against Havan Liberty in the finals. He is
against his former team.
Yeah. So, I mean, he picks up the player on the flank, and now he's just in a 1v3, eats the thing, but he knows two players are detained, so he just dashes to site anyway, cleans them up, and then he's in a 1v1 against MW. And, it's just, I mean, if he hits that would have been the true anime battle shot. But I mean, he is very good. Is really the point that I'm trying to drive home here.
Okay.
But Vivo Keyd are a cool team in their free-flowing nature, and I think they have some good fundamentals. And I think that they do have some upset potential in the firepower that he brings. I could see them getting a map if he's in, like, if he's playing in God mode and his teammates are supporting him effectively. I think they have some upset potential on a map. I don't know if they could. I'm not super confident in their ability to make it deeper. I mean, that spray down is just outlandish. Control? I'm telling you, his spray control is amazing. His rifling is just crazy good.
Yeah. I want to move on to the other team that's in Brazil as well, Havan Liberty, that they played in the finals too.
Yeah.
And our topic here is, do they have upset potential? But before we get into talking about the team, though, I want to just lay the groundwork here, because a lot of what we're going to discuss with these teams is about upset potential in the group stage.
Yeah.
But upsetting a team in groups is really hard when you have double elim. Because if we imagine like Havan Liberty are in a group where they have two other good teams. Let's say it's two other good beatable teams, though. It's like it's 100 Thieves and a G2, something like that. That's the group that they get. And so those are not the craziest teams that you have in North America and EMEA. But if you get matched against one of them at the beginning, which it's likely to happen, say you play against 100 Thieves first, if you win that game, you then need to be able to beat either the other team in the group, or when you get dropped to the lower, you have to beat them again because they're going to face you in that lower final. So you don't just have to get one upset win if you're the third seeded team. You have to get 2 upset wins to be able to get out of a bracket like this, which means it's significantly different to Reykjavik, where if you got one series upset win, you could go way deeper than you would have previously. But you are not getting out of groups unless you get 2 upset wins as a Havan Liberty, as a Vivo Keyd, as these kind of teams. In all likelihood, depending on what the groups look like. But in most normal group scenarios, you need 2 upset wins, which makes it really difficult to imagine a lot of these teams making the quarters, even if they're good, because it's quite anti-fragile, the setup.
Yeah. I mean, so I was saying this to you earlier, Josh, but absolutely the best team to compare Havan Liberty to are Vision Strikers. I mean, they play the same comps, and they play a very similar style. And they have good utility usage and timings. They look like a well-drilled team, because they are a well-drilled team. I think that, listen, they don't have the same level of firepower as Vivo Keyd. No one in the region does right now. And that is why, I mean, they just got, Vivo Keyd just firepower diffed so many teams to qualify and to get the win in the end. All 3 maps in the finals between Havan Liberty and Vivo Keyd were like 13-11, OT 13-11, I think, or 2 OTs. I can't remember exactly, but
so they're pretty
all
even
super
teams.
Close. Yeah, Havan Liberty are the more like tactical, pretty team where you're going to see them syncing up the Sky and the Breach utility nicely. Things in that regard, like
running triple initiator on bind with this as well. It's
Kurt,
like a
could
weird
you play
blend.
round 4 on bind here against Furia?
This is like this comp is a weird blend between like the Vision Striker stuff and then a more EMEA. We must have. Well, I guess EMEA actually has gotten rid of the Sova in a lot of these situations as well. Yeah. But it's like the almost old FPX stuff where they're playing with the Breach and the Sova on this map. You're playing with Breach, Sova, and Sky. You're sacrificing that Jett.
At some point in this round, they do an exec, and it's just, I mean, it looks like you're watching the clips that we played of Vision Strikers when we were talking about them a couple weeks ago, and we played their bind clips. They do such similar stuff, which, I mean, I suppose is really not inevitable, but certainly how you want to play when you have the Breach Sky. But they play the Breach Sky on bind, they play it on Ascent, and they play it on Haven.
They play it on all 3 of those maps. They play
and
Breach
no
and
Sentinel.
Sky.
And then they play with a Sentinel on Split. I haven't seen them. They didn't play any Breeze, but they play with the one on Split and whatever the other map is that I can't think of off the top of my head. Yeah, Icebox. And so, yeah, I don't know. They're a cool team, though. They have a cool approach to the game. They're well drilled. They're an interesting team. Do they have upset potential? I mean, I think, yeah, maybe, but for different reasons than Vivo Keyd. I don't think they have the same level of firepower, but they could catch teams off with the style if teams aren't adequately... I mean, you can see right here. So the wall goes up, the defensive wall. The jump comes in, the Sky Flash is just timed perfectly off the rays coming through, and then the Breach Flash comes in back sight for the second kill.
Were they waiting for the defensive wall so that they could flash through it?
Yeah. And the timings on everything...
nerdy.
It is very nerdy. And but the timings on everything are great. They're a well-drilled team.
Right.
And I could see it catching some teams off, definitely beating some of the minor region teams. I mean, listen, they might be able to catch off a major region team on like a map, or keep some maps close. But I don't think they necessarily have the firepower. That is one thing
But they got a cool playbook.
Cool playbook, cool team to watch. Brazil has sent 2 cool teams. And one great difference between... I mean, if you were to look at, I think, the positives and the negatives of Brazil right now heading into this event, where the 2 major negatives for them in Iceland were they didn't catch up to the meta at all. and they played with no confidence at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Vikings, yeah, they just played with no confidence. And right now, these teams are playing super on meta. In fact, I think they've been playing more Sky than maybe any other region. I mean, every team has a Sky pretty much on every map all the time, and they've been playing with her for months. So their Sky play looks good. They're playing a lot more Astra. Also, Havan Liberty they have a masseuse, a psychologist. They have like a crazy team behind them.
Wait, what am I looking at here?
This is the Havan Liberty team doing like I don't know, some kind of
like reflex
Team building.
warm-ups or something.
yeah. I mean, they are just on another level.
I mean, that looks
They are on
incredible.
another level.
Ooh.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
I know. But it is
Can
just
they take her to Berlin?
On my face.
hopefully. it is but they're a cool team. Brazil has sent 2 cool teams. They're more on meta than before. The thing that I'm just hoping for more than anything from the region, honestly, is that they just play with a lot more confidence, because I think that that was the thing that hurt the Vikings specifically the most. So I hope that Heat turns up and is still cocky as fuck and just plays against the best teams like he feels like he's still the best player, no matter if he's playing against tens or whoever, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that they have a good shot at, I think, looking more impressive than last time, at least just from like the public optic alone.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think like having a crazy Jett there is going to make them the region look better, because the duelists weren't really there last time.
Sure.
And I think that if Havan Liberty stay as drilled, they have that pretty tactical look at times that is very appealing. So hopefully Brazil has a better showing.
All right. Well, the team that failed to qualify that people will know from Reykjavik is Vikings. They were trying to run like Sassy on Jett, for example. They tried to shift a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Ended up getting knocked down to the lower bracket. Shifted Sassy back onto Sova. They haven't managed to make it. They made adjustments last time after they had their experience from playing and scrimming against the other teams. I mean, Sharks were actually even boot camping in Siberia for a while before this event kicked off as well, and they obviously managed to qualify as well. So, what was your assessment on Vikings? They won Masters 1. They won their regional part of Masters 2 and made it to Berlin. This time in Stage 3, they fall short. They were not even the 3rd team. They were the 4th place team. So it's not like they were a hair's breadth away from qualifying. They were fairly significantly far away from qualifying. I mean, what's the assessment there of Vikings?
I mean, in their loss, they got absolutely duelist diffed, which is kind of just been often the case with Vikings. And I think Vikings I think Vikings, along with a lot of the other teams in the region near the top, Furia, Gamelanders, etc., I think these teams just needed to make way more changes than they did in regards to rosters. I do think a super team needed to be formed in some capacity, and it hasn't happened. And now you just have a bunch of really good players stranded on some of these teams that are just struggling to find good roles. I mean, they have, they're playing with like on this. I go to the first map, Kurt. Like on Icebox, they're playing with now GTN on Jett and Saucy back on Sova, which I like Saucy on Sova a lot, but now they have FRZ on Omen on this map instead of a second duelist, and before FRZ was the Jett. I mean, they've been throwing the Jett around to anyone who will play it. They're playing a number of different roles. Sodhawk is playing he's played like 7 different. I mean, Kurt, can you click on Sodhawk at the bottom? I mean, just see the amount of roles he's played in the past 60 days. Look at this shit. He's playing everything. But when he's on Sentinel, he's clearly at his best. But he's just playing a number of different roles, trying to fill any and everything for them. They're trying so many different comps. They're really just all over the place, and they need to make. You could go back to the Vivo Keyd game, Kurt, but they need to make a significant roster shuffle. And even I don't even like the Saucy on Jett thing in that it feels like such a band-aid fix. When Saucy's on Sova, he's got a 0.94 KPR, and when he's on Jett, he has 0.98. I mean, it's outrageous that he's getting that much of he's getting that many kills playing Sova. He doesn't need to be. You shouldn't need to have Saucy on Jett. They just need really good duelists to accompany Saucy and Sodhawk, who are excellent support players. I think that them, along with Gamelanders, along with Fura, a lot of the teams, they just need to make changes, and they honestly just need to come together and make one sick team. I think the inevitability of this. One org needs to put up the money to combine a lot of these players, and they should have been looking for upcoming talent like Heat, who proved how good he was in the previous qualifier, but instead is on Vivo Keyd. I think that these teams needed to be a lot more active in roster shuffling. Listen, I get that they want to try again another time with the same roster that they made Iceland with the Berlin. I get it. That's fine. But now is really the time for moves to be made. I feel I don't think they can wait any longer. And it's a shame that some of these players we don't get to see on the world stage like Saucy on teams that are, I guess, can live up to how good players like him are individually, even to show their skill as individuals even. I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Vikings. The answer sort of generally with Gamelanders, Fury, etc. But I think Vikings are just they're lost in too many role swaps. They don't know what to have people play. And I mean, at Iceland and now even in their own region, as more talent is coming up, I just don't think that their fragging power is enough. I mean, they got diffed in this BO3. On this map, at the half, I think Heat and Mariz both had they're both 15 and 7 at half. I mean, they just couldn't compete in that regard.
Got smacked on.
It's weird to me that so many teams are suffering from the same sort of diagnosis from Dr. Valorant. Like, it's why is everybody playing Jett roulette? You know, like every single team is playing. Just flip the wheel. Who's gonna play Jett next? Liquid, FPX. Like Vikings, all these different teams, and it's the same time too. It feels really weird to me. It feels like all the hype behind like CNET and other players like that has, I don't know, made people think that it's there, but also not make them invest in a player like Heat, for example.
Yeah, I think part of it was coming out of Reykjavik. Actually, was that I think the takeaway from Reykjavik was that these crazy Jett players can control a game. They can really stop and shut down these heavy utility teams by dodging utility and forcing them to take the duels and dashing away and like ruining your setups in that sense. I think a lot of people took away from that they needed somebody to try and be a crazy Jett, and if their Jett wasn't capable of it, they needed someone else to try, because they're looking at a CNED and a TENS and they're like, okay, guys, who on our team is TENS?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, Sassy's our best player. Maybe if we just give him the ability to play Jett, he can do that. You know, maybe he's being held back by this overall and he can do it. I can see the logic behind it. I can see I feel like that's part of what Liquid have done with Scream as well, is just like, Scream's fucking good. Just put him on your best role, even though he can play the Sage and be more supportive for you and that kind of stuff. Just try and throw him on Jett and that'll fix some of the issues. I think though that it's become a problem because these teams weren't built this way. And so as the meta develops, you have to reconfigure how your team works. And we're still in a very young stage of Valorant where these teams were formed with strict roles in mind. You are a Cypher Killjoy player. You are a Smoke player. You are a whatever. You are a Sova only player. And that isn't really working for most squads.
Saucy's Jett is really good. And I wouldn't be mad at them doing like a Shazam-esque thing with him, where he plays Sova on some maps, and then when they don't want a Sova on split, you have Saucy playing Jett. Cool, but they need a duelist that is going to be their pop-off guy on a duelist role on every map. And then if you want to have Saucy play Jett on some of these maps, he can. But yeah, I think that the point you're making is just very, very accurate. As the meta shifts and the times change, some of these rosters are just not made up to keep up with it. And I think when you just see too many role swaps, it never lends itself to good development over time when you're just constantly throwing things around. So, yeah, I mean,
some people can handle role swaps, and some people.
I mean, but some of them are just outrageous. Like when you see Sodhawk playing like 8 different agents in the past 60 days.
Of course.
And then also when you look at when you watch, it's evident that when he's on Killjoy and Cypher, he's at his best. He's a very intelligent player when he's on those agents, and you can see it. And then if you look at the stats, his stats are significantly better on those agents too.
Sure.
So at some point you just have to, and this is probably the point for them. I mean, they made it to Iceland. I get that they don't want to make a change immediately after that, and they just want to hit the grind and see what they can do. But for teams like them and the other teams in the region, Fury Game Lines, I think now is the time to make some sweeping changes.
I mean,
if you're looking to have, because Brazil has the talent, they have nasty players in the region, but they need to be on the right teams.
Okay. Do you have any further words on Brazilian Valorant to wrap things up?
No.
Okay. Well, let us.
I mean, I had another topic in case we were going to talk about like Game Landers and Fury, but it kind of all ties into the Vikings point in some way, though the team's problems are all a bit different.
Well,
similar.
The final stuff that we have to discuss today are two major pieces of news and the updates of the power rankings that we wanted to do at the end of NA and EMEA happening. So to start with here, Cloud9 Blue have debuted with Vanity. So they had Vanity on their squad. He was officially announced. He's been playing for some of the first times, and they played in, what was it called? NSG Winter Champions or something?
Okay, well, it's a summer.
It's not winter. All right.
Winter Champions.
Summer Champions, sorry.
This guy needs help. The month is August, right? That's in the summer.
It's hot.
It was the summer championship.
Okay, I had it all correct apart from the wrong season. That's not too bad.
Yeah, you remembered the tournament
the
organizer,
tournament
the only one. Good job.
What did you say? Sorry, Balla.
I was just saying the logo has a palm tree in it. Like,
okay, all right. I've never seen the logo before.
Clues.
Also, there's a lot of palm trees in certain areas in winter. All right, palm trees in LA still in winter.
Sure, yeah.
I've been confused with my time in the US.
Anyhow,
so they won the tournament.
Yeah,
that's the simplest thing that you can point towards, is that they ended up winning in relatively comfortable fashion as well, if I remember. Right? I think the finals...
relatively comfortable. I mean, the final was not very close. I mean, they had a tougher match, really, against Evil Geniuses before this.
Right. And that's a new EG roster as well,
Yeah, they have
right?
EG.
So Potter got moved to head coach.
Boostio now, and Potter's coaching.
Yeah. So that does look like an upgraded version of EG, for sure.
And there are really good players on that EG roster. Boostio is pretty nasty on the duelist. Temperature is real good. I think on one of these games, Boostio had I think it was on the last map, Kurt Boostio had some. Oh no, it wasn't this one. It was a different match, but there was one where Boostio just had I can't even remember. It's just an outlandish amount of kills. But anyhow, yeah, Cloud9 debuted with the roster, and really the main question it answered is who was going to be in the Cloud9 roster,
right?
Which is Mitch and not Poise,
right? And I originally thought that the most obvious thing in the world would be to just do the old switcheroo with Mitch being replaced by Vanity.
Yeah.
And Cloud9 continue to invest in the Mitch stonks massively. Yeah. And they said that one of the big reasons why, I think this was DDK asked, was it Mitch perhaps? I can't remember exactly who was on the show. I think it was on the Nines, which is like Cloud9's podcast show kind of thing. And DDK was there, and he asked one of the players what the reason was for Poise being dropped. And he said it was a comms issue. The guy just doesn't talk enough and doesn't communicate effectively, so they feel like there's better value elsewhere with keeping Mitch on the team. So that makes sense from that point of view, but it does make the roles a little, I guess it doesn't really make the roles a bit stranger. They were going to be strange anyway because there wasn't a natural Sentinel player if you had replaced Mitch on the team, but it definitely does put things in an odd position for Cloud9 where they don't really have that natural secondary duelist player, I would say. That's going to be Zephyr, I guess. But we haven't seen enough of that, I feel, for me to feel confident that he's going to be great in that role. And also Mitch was playing like Sage in some of them, so maybe he's going to be playing the secondary role sometimes. So I don't know. There's still things to be ironed out there, I feel, with this squad.
Yeah. It does make sense. And
I love that, by the
yeah,
way.
I mean,
you just showed the clip of him trying to body block
that
the
is
stage.
so funny.
The Sova
It
dart.
is so funny.
You can do that in multiple different lineups, but on that one, he's just too close. And the lockdown
Yeah.
dies anyway, and he takes 90 damage to the face.
That is just
God bless we did.
so tragic. That is so funny. Yeah, I mean, it does make sense with the rolls, and honestly, it probably does. I think it makes more sense. The rolls are probably smoother than if they had kept Poise. I think the only thing with Poise for me is that he just clearly has an immense amount of talent. Hopefully he works out the issues that are keeping him from being started on a team of this caliber. Because in regards to the other facets of his game, the mechanics, etc., super talented. Yeah. And would like to see him starting on a good roster. So hopefully he can work that out. But
yeah, it's got to be a learning moment for you, right? If you end up getting dropped for that reason, like you have to actively work on what's holding you back.
Yeah, definitely. Because
it's dope that they like even said it, you know, because a lot of times a player like that would just get dropped without, you know, any knowledge of what he actually is missing. And comms is a very, very common issue. Very, very common issue. It's really hard to have high level comms, and honestly, probably most of the time when roster changes happen, it is comms issues that end up being the reason down the line. Like when you think of the root cause, because it's just so hard, and different teams need different things too. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, for sure. And I think these roles make sense. Zeppa is also still so new to the game. It feels that, I don't know, his role's just kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He's probably, I mean, a duelist makes sense for him. And listen, I know the people are really expecting Zeppa to be the next big thing in this game.
Would you say that you've seen glimpses of it at this point? Because I can't particularly say that I've seen that level of potential from Zeppa, but he is super new. I'm not writing him off by any
for a while either.
That's also
you know what I
true.
mean. So I'm gotta give a grace period. That's kind of where I'm at with that. And
is that the same for you, Balla? Do you feel the same with that?
About Zeppa?
About Zeppa, yeah. In terms of like seeing the potential already, have you had any of that?
No, I really haven't, but I haven't also watched him as much yet. Like the only time I didn't watch the Summer Champs. I watched the open qualifiers that they make it through. You know, so it's like not that much information, anyways, because they're not even playing against the highest tier of competition at all times. So but I would make the comparison to somebody like Zelsis, for example, who like I never really saw flashes of, oh shit, he's the best duelist on the planet, but he still was consistently decent, and I think that's what's happening right now with Zeppa. You know,
okay, yeah,
which is fine. Like you don't necessarily need the best of the best right out the get go.
Tell me this: you watched the tournament, right? I didn't.
Yeah, I watched a decent amount of it.
Attack rounds, Cloud9's attack rounds.
Okay,
has Vanity saved them?
I mean,
can you not tell yet based on the opponents?
I'm not gonna say he saved them yet, but it was not the same as the last we saw them.
Okay,
I could say that. I mean, I won't say that he saved the attack rounds, because also gotta wait until they're playing against some of the teams in the last chance qualifier, to be honest. Some of the higher caliber teams, but they are not playing
I forgot that they'll be in the last chance qualifier.
Yeah.
Well,
they're not going to be playing the rush things every round style. But I like where the roster's at. I think it makes sense. Having Leaf on Duelist for sure is cool. I mean, Leaf is very good. Very, very good.
He's playing Jett too, right?
He's playing full-time Jett. And if Zeppa pans out to be another star player, and then they have 2 star duelists with Vanity IGL on controller, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
It sounds good to me. But I do think there's a decent amount of responsibility right now on Zeppa to become that guy for this team.
Yeah. I mean, that when I look at this roster and the roles that they now have with Poise not being there, it does feel like, it's based on Zeppa. It's based on how much he can actually, how much impact he can have.
I didn't even really mention it, but I mean, they still have Zeta too, who is just an excellent player. I mean, they have an excellent roster. It all makes sense. The roles all line up. Yeah, I would just like to see how Zeppa develops, and I mean, crucially, how far can he go before Last Chance qualifier?
Right, because there really isn't that much time before the Last Chance qualifier. There's like, what, 3 weeks or something? Is it more than that?
I mean, it's definitely more than that.
It's on October, isn't it? It's like a month and 3 weeks, or a month and 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's there's a reasonable amount of time to commit to a new role, though, and try and get up to scratch on it and really like dedicate yourself to it.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at our NA power rankings, though. We want to do an update of the North American power rankings. I mean, I have noticed that a lot of people have been confused by the usage of the term power rankings as well. Because they're normally used to reference something that's like up to date, recent, a lot of recency bias.
Yeah.
It's supposed to indicate who's the best like right now. Whereas these are not necessarily power rankings. They're more like, I don't know, 4-month rankings. They're not power rankings. They're just actual rankings. So I don't know if we should come up with a new metric of discussing these so that it's clear. If we call them like the 4-month rankings or something rather than power rankings. But I noticed a lot of people getting confused by this, especially in EMEA where we hadn't done one before and the scene is more volatile. People were extraordinarily confused.
More clear, though, as time goes on now, because we established the initial one that was based more on the past.
Sure.
And now moving forward, it's just going to be adjusting the rankings based on what happens and how much we value what has happened. So it should be kind of clear now, hopefully, that we've established the initial ones that kind of had to be based on the past.
I think this was done before any of the Challenger finals had happened, right? So this was way earlier. So obviously Sentinel stay in the number 1 position.
Yep. And obviously Envy staying in number 2, I think.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, there's the 100 Thieves just finished in second. I think there's... Yeah. You would expect them to move up a position, I think.
I mean, definitely.
With the qualification to Berlin.
One for sure.
I mean, I think you could even maybe argue for 100 Thieves to be over Envy at this point, given that they beat them. But I still think if you factor in a little bit of the history... still of the year, Envy have been more consistent, so maybe they're just holding on to that position. It almost feels kind of tied.
It's very even between the two of them, I would say.
Yeah, it does feel really even at this point.
100 Thieves actually have a better head-to-head record over the course of this year. It's just that Envy have actually had significantly high... Well, not significantly, but they have had higher placements. You know, they've finished 4th compared to 100 Thieves, like 5th,
I don't know, maybe we put 100 Thieves in second now, to be honest.
I mean, they just lost against them, right?
Yeah.
Envy just...
I mean...
Yeah, and that's actually, if you go back to Challengers 1-2, then they beat them there as well. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. The head-to-head record does favor 100 Thieves. It's just that Envy has had higher placements throughout the year, and Envy have done better against the rest of the pack.
I was just talking about more recently.
Oh,
too.
just recently.
Obviously, the head-to-head. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, I'm not mad at this. I think it's
a seeding game.
I think it's a coin flip either way in terms of where you rank them. To me, the power rankings, or rather the rankings for 100 Thieves and Envy, going to be decided based on what they actually do when they get to Berlin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 100 Thieves have looked excellent recently, so I'm perfectly happy with them.
Yeah, it is really. Yeah, I mean, you could argue either way. Both are pretty reasonable.
Exec got a 4th place.
I mean, Exec are definitely in 4th. They're definitely in 4th. We're
after
moving
the
them up.
flop of
I'm
version
cutting
1.
you off. They're moving up. I mean, it's not even just that they got 4th. It's that they were so clearly in 4th that they're in 4th. You know what I mean?
I think, though, based on what version 1 have done earlier, they pretty much go ahead by virtue of just getting to Reykjavik ahead of the rest of the pack, because in North America, there's a pretty big gap between the top 4 and everyone else. Like, the 5th place team, I'm not even really sure who it is right now.
Right. I mean, according to this last tournament, it was Rise, right?
I guess Rise
tied with FaZe.
Was it? We're tied in that kind of position. So... it definitely boosts the FaZe stocks, I can say that, at least, because they were just holding on to that 10th position by virtue of stuff they'd done years ago. I mean, they were holding on to past heirlooms of greatness. It was dusty old memories of being good. So
Yeah.
the fact that they actually ended up doing well in this definitely takes them up above the rest of the pack. But as for that like 5th, 6th position, I think the version 1 is still accomplished more in the short term than a team like a Rise or a FaZe. I don't think it's reasonable to rank them above, even though version 1 might just be a one-hit wonder. But they have actually accomplished something. So
I think that's pretty fair. I think that is fair.
I don't see us keeping V1 here simply because they lost to Gen.G, who's behind them still, probably, or is behind them in the previous time, and T1. They're so low, so much lower, and T1's going to fall off, and so is Gen.G. So if those two teams are the ones that are beating them 3 weeks ago, then how are we justifying them staying? Not necessarily like falling all the way behind them or anything like that, but for them not to fall even more, you know?
Sure, I think I'm with you that they should fall, but you can only fall in a ranking if there's other people who rise above you. And I'm not seeing any other team in North America that I can think of that would take that 5th place spot above a team that made it to Reykjavik. Making it through the prior ranking, the prior tournament was such a big accomplishment that even if, I mean, who would be your candidates, Balla, for rising above a version 1? Like a Gen.G?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have
that's the
Gen.G
difficult
because
part.
they failed
It's like-
qualification too.
Yeah, and
I mean, I think the only reasonable team is maybe
Well, at least
Rise.
Gen.G got farther than V1.
but Rise are a very recent, decent performance, and you can't weigh that one all right tournament showing above
Yeah.
I mean, if
literally
FaZe
being
done
the
enough,
second best
Like,
team in the
I
region.
think of C9 and FaZe as the two teams that I'd be like, well, not even C9 really, but it's like, it's too
Yeah.
hard. You're right. You're 100% right. Like you try to balance it, but there's no team that's balancing it enough that can push them.
Sure,
past
and
that.
I
Yeah,
agree that
100%.
the version 1 should be slipping, and that to me is why there's a pretty big tier gap between 4 and 5, because no matter who you put in 5, even if you made the argument that FaZe should overtake all the teams ahead of them because they already had that 10th place spot,
Yeah.
plus
Plus
nearly
the-
throwing ceramics all over the place,
Yep.
plus they got that 5th placement.
Yep.
I think FaZe
Yep,
are
breaking
probably going to
shit.
rise to at least 6th. Should FaZe be above version 1? If we're talking about accomplishments in the last like 3-4 months,
they both came. Yeah, I mean that
Because
FaZe second place is so long.
it's so long ago.
I mean,
It's
we're
essentially
closing
irrelevant
in
now.
on. I mean, it's 8 months away.
Yeah.
that it was 8 months ago that happened. Or
I would say
7
it
months ago.
essentially is irrelevant now.
But FaZe have shown that they're at a more consistent level at this point, I think, or that rather like their base level has gone up
Yeah, I
compared to
think
where
so.
it was previously.
I think so.
I think because it didn't. This wasn't like a miracle run that they went on.
yeah.
I think their base level increased. Some of their players, like I think Baby J was a good addition that has helped them, and I think they were getting more out of Raucus in this tournament. And I think that their medium is a bit better.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting at.
I'd like to propose something. We leave the 5th place blank and we move version 1 to 6. Just
Can't do that.
why not? It's a visual indicator that
Mhm.
there's a big gap there.
I mean, yeah, but we can also just say it.
Yeah, okay, we could just say it.
We can also
You
just
know, people
make
won't
it
listen to what we
clear that
say.
there's a big gap.
People won't listen to what we say. They'll only look at the screenshot.
I mean,
afterwards.
I think 6 has to be FaZe now, though. Surely, right? And then maybe
Probably.
C9 just below them because C9 also just won this NSG tournament. But
Yeah, Cloud9 did have a very disappointing showing in this qualifier. But I think the fact that they were one map away from making it to Reykjavik, and what does winning the NSG Summer really do for you? They're better than NRG, but that's
they're better than all the tier 2 teams. For
yeah,
sure.
but that's not
Which is
a huge accomplishment, is it?
I mean, it's not an enormous accomplishment, but it is really the only important non-VCT tournament this year.
Sure.
I mean, it's
yeah.
still like a 25K.
I mean, the other
This is
teams
a
that made it
mid-sized
that
tournament,
did
but-
well in this time around. You've got Rise, you've
Yeah.
got TSM.
They make it in the top 10.
I mean,
Yeah,
Rise and
Rise-
TSM have to be in the top 10 now, I think.
TSM.
TSM? I'm not sure.
I think TSM got their way into 10th.
Maybe.
Come on.
But their performance before
Surely,
that
right?
was so
Because
poor.
Anbox have to be knocked way down.
Yeah. They're not even in the
Yeah.
running, probably.
And
Gen.G,
T1,
I think,
T1
are just-
got beaten by TSM for TSM to qualify. They got to be on there now, surely, right? I think I could see
Possibly.
T1 hanging on by
Possibly.
a thread.
I think those 4 teams that we've got there are the ones that are in the conversation, right? For
But
the
here's
last
the thing
3
now.
spots.
Gen.G now.
G.
Gen.G,
Oh, LG.
yeah.
LG's a
Gen.G's accomplishments, I think, are just too far in the past now. They failed to qualify now 4 qualifiers in a row to a Challengers main event. In all of stage 2 and 3, they did not qualify for a main event.
right.
And their
right.
only success was getting 3rd in the first one. And if we're not going to value it anymore really for FaZe, can't really value it anymore for Gen.G. And Gen.G have had less success than FaZe since then.
Yeah. I've got to be reminded.
Is this the time where we're completely phasing out some of the earlier stuff and phasing in the newer stuff?
I think so, because stage 1 was ages ago, and we have more important main events now that are worth way more points in themselves, and the qualifications for the actual LAN events are just, and the LAN events themselves are so important. I just don't, in the scope of the scene, it's just, who really cares that they came in 3rd in an online tournament at this point?
we are now 2 full tournaments past that result, right?
And
We've had
7
2 full
months.
Yeah.
7 months. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a
Crazy.
long time.
Yeah, I think
So-
it's a good time.
We
to try and
gotta
think
get, I mean,
But then that's also who are the teams that did well in stage 2, man? I can't remember. off the top of my
Cloud9
head.
version
Yeah,
1.
Cloud9 version 1.
Envy came in 4th.
Yeah.
And then,
then
Xset, 100 Thieves finished
and-
like 5th, 6th, or
So
Xset
then-
even 7th, 8th, I
Who
think.
the fuck are you going to
There's
once you
Mbox.
plumb the depths? Is that T1?
I mean, well, T1 haven't qualified for any main events either. They just have been on the cusp of doing it. But so have Gen.G, really.
Yeah.
I mean, T1 and Gen.G are 2 of the teams that have just been on the cusp of qualifying for the main events, but have finished just outside of qualifying every single time.
This is what makes it.
TSM have finally stepped up and actually done it.
Yeah.
But
But that's what makes it so weird to doing this ranking as well, is that a lot of the teams that did well this time around were completely absent the prior time.
yeah,
You know, your LG, your FaZe, your Rise, your TSM, they weren't even in the conversation. They weren't even close, right? I think, was LG maybe the closest out of those? I can't really remember what they were
No.
doing, honestly.
LG planked in the last one.
Oh.
I mean, they got like eliminated in the qualifier by
all the
Noble
teams
before
that
it was
did
in-
like all the teams that were in the position of TSM, Rise, LG were not also in the last one either. You know, so
Yeah.
it's exactly the same flip flop situation. So it's really hard to gauge
Yeah.
without using prior stuff.
Well, I
or,
think if we
like,
have a
summer camp as
situation
well.
where in stage 2 we have 4 teams at the bottom of the top 10, and then in stage 3 we have 4 completely different teams in the top 10, and they literally just swap spots, we should probably value the more recent events because they're going to be the better predictors of future success, and that's
And I think Rise have shown, though it hasn't been for an immense amount of time, I think they have at least shown consistency throughout stage 3 in that they made it through the first open qual and
Yeah.
finished just outside of qualifying for the first through the first round, which Sentinels, 100 Thieves, Envy, and Xset all did, who are clearly the top 4. They finished just outside of that. Then in their second qualifier for the main event, they made it through, playing well, and then they finish 5th, 6th, just outside of the top 4 again. Pretty
Sure.
consistent.
yeah.
I think that should net them a pretty good spot at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's relatively reasonable to have them slot into the 8th position. What I'm thinking about here is T1 is because they actually had an okay showing in stage 2. You know,
Yeah.
they managed to take the map off Sentinels. They made it somewhat deep in the bracket at least, right?
Yes.
They
finished just outside of qualifying. They had a close game against TSM and lost that, and then they lost 2 rides, I'm pretty sure, in the lower bracket.
You mean this time around?
Yeah, the second open
Right,
qualifier.
I'm saying the
Yeah.
one before that in stage 2.
Oh,
They
all the way
actually
in
had-
stage 2.
In stage 2, they
yeah,
had some
they almost
decent
beat
success as
Sentinels,
well.
and
So I feel like
but Sentinels were.
over that time period, are like a consistent, like 9th, 10th kind of team that's going to hang on there.
The thing is, though, so were Gen.G. But at least Gen.G got 3rd that one time.
Yeah, but
Gen.G and
that's so long
T1 have
ago.
had pretty much the same results.
Right.
I mean, they've pretty much they're both the two teams that they keep qualifying through to the qualifying finals, whatever the fuck you call it. I hate this system.
I know.
It makes it impossible to talk about this.
It does.
They both qualify through the open quals into the open qualifier finals with the 8-team brackets that get you into the Challengers main event, whatever the fuck that's called. But they both fall short in like the 9th, 10th-ish spots.
Yeah.
So
Although Gen.G was in both, right? Because they made it to Challengers 1. T1
yes.
didn't make it to Challengers 1.
Yeah, they qualified through the first time in stage 3. They qualified through the first open qualifier.
Who did better
in
this
stage
time
3.
around, Gen.G or T1? I think T1 did slightly better, didn't they? Or was it exactly the same?
I mean,
Same points.
Same points?
yeah,
I mean,
okay.
well,
They
then
lost-
Gen.G...
Gen.G lost to Rise the same round as FaZe beat T1.
Right, okay. So then Gen.G should be ranked ahead of T1.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which means that T1 are definitely not in the top 10.
No,
Because
I mean, they fall off of it now.
Yeah. So, okay. What the fuck has LG been up to over this time period before this event?
I mean, in the last squall, in stage 2, they just bombed out. They lost to Noble early in the bracket.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what happened in the second one. I mean, we have not seen Luminosity play Valorant for eons.
Yeah, for a long time.
It's also a completely different roster. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I
it's
mean,
still
true. They have two different players.
Yeah, they have two different players.
I mean, at the beginning and then one because Moose came back. But
right.
Either way, I don't know if that. I mean,
then in that case, then TSM should be ranked ahead of LG.
They should
because LG
be.
don't have anything else that's going for them over that time period, and neither did TSM. They're both teams are only being carried by their merits of what they did in stage 3.
Yeah,
And
but TSM had a better showing.
Had a better showing.
So
then it's TSM and Gen.G that are going to be our 9th and 10th teams by process of elimination.
Unless we value Luminosity making this main event and finishing in last over Gen.G not making it.
Yeah.
That's the question,
But
really.
TSM either way is like guaranteed, right?
TSM have to be a 9th.
So I think TSM have to be
they
a
have
9th,
to be a
yeah.
9th, right?
Yeah. What an odd ranking. The North American scene outside of the top 4 or 5 really has been in serious flux over the last 3-4 months. I don't fucking know. I mean, at this point, the top 10 is lost in the sauce. Like, after I got past 7, it's just nonsense at that point.
I mean,
So,
it's just...
I'm down for whoever
What
you guys
do
want to
you
go with.
value more? Luminosity doing nothing in stage 2 but getting last place in the stage 3 main event?
I value Gen.G.
Or Gen.G consistently being around like 9th, 10th the whole time?
I value consistency personally rather than blitz in and out of the top 10, but that's just my criteria. It's
I'm fine. I'm fine
there
with
was
that. Gen.G.
6 last time too, so like that's dropping more than 4 spots. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
and they've consistently been around 10th, so pretty fair that they're in 10th.
Yep. Definitely seems like as we look towards the future, version 1 would be dropping even further.
Yeah.
The fate of Cloud9 is absolutely in their own hands as to whether they rise or fall with this new Vanity squad.
Yep.
Hope to see more from Rise and TSM, and then Gen.G as well. That is just completely up to them whether they succeed or fail. All right. That's a pretty
Just laughing
solid...
because Wyatt gets up, and usually it's like on this screen. So Wyatt gets up and walks off screen. But this time you guys are like cut off. So you just see Wyatt get up, and then it just runs through your frame. And it looks so funny.
He just ports downwards on the camera instead of across. The next thing we wanted to talk about, it's a good job Wyatt's not here actually, so I can sneak this one in. We're going to talk about FPX again. God damn it. Because there is a report that came out from somebody, I believe, I really wish that I'd written this down. I believe it was a report from somebody in the CIS scene, and then also a separate report, which might have been with the same sources, I'm not sure, from Halo too.
Doesn't have a source here.
Oh, so this is a VLR. Okay, so it's been reported from 3 separate places. So this is a VLR report that was also reported by Christian Topinski. That was also, I saw, reported by Halo as well. So 3 separate places reporting the same stuff seems to indicate that there's. I mean, good luck with that one. Oh, well, actually, that seems like pretty reasonable Google Translate there. Oh, it's Polish. Okay. So the idea of this being that FPX are set to drop Shadow and dimasick, and they're also...
I left just in time.
Yes, you are. If we bring the report back up, though, so that we can go through it a little bit more, they... yeah, and they're also set to drop their analyst menegh as well. I'm not sure who that was, honestly. I didn't realize that they were working with this person.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had a French analyst, so that doesn't... I mean, I know nothing about that. But the dropping of Shadow and dimasick is interesting. We've talked at length, too much, some might say, about the changes that FPX need to make. And I came to the conclusion, at least, that change needs to happen from the top in terms of Angel, Doombros changing the style that they want to play the game with and trying to make that work. The roster they are left with, Zipan, Angel, Xiao, if they did change their philosophy of we want to go more in a duelist role, have Xiao play Jett, have Zipan play Raze, or whatever he wants to play, and go in that direction, these are the people you would want to keep. I would also probably want to keep dimasick, though, as well, in that kind of system. Maybe you could change him out, but it wouldn't really hurt them. But frankly, I'm not convinced on this move unless it also comes with changes to the style that this team wants to play. Because the style is pretty, it looks really cool, but it hasn't been successful at the top level.
That's all it really comes down to, right? It's all about the style. Also, they brought in dimasick to play Sentinel, and look, you got to be flexible.
He looked great on it. I
But
think
he was
he looked
great
really
on Sentinel,
good on
but
Sentinel.
nah, fuck that. Who's going to play Phoenix? Okay. I mean, and then just cut him. Okay. I mean, it's just...
That's the scary part, though, for me, is like they're trying to force one of their players who has a very set role into a different role, which means to me that they want somebody who's playing that role, even though you have other people who were already doing it. And now I don't know what they're looking for, now that he's gone, because they're like, oh, he couldn't fit into the role that we wanted him to. So we need to go find somebody who will, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm just confused. And I already was confused because we didn't know what the frick anybody's roles were anyways on the team. And that is the major problem with them. So I don't know. It's fine. Whatever. Let's see what happens. I think that's what it comes down to me. Yeah, maybe you want to see a change from the top down. I think that makes sense. But now that this is potentially where they're going to go for, I think it's let's see what happens. Let's see if they do change their philosophy, right?
And it's the right time to make these moves. FPX are out of last chance qualifiers. They can't make it. And they clearly have hit a roadblock, a serious roadblock that has stopped them from moving further. I like Shadow as a player. I think Shadow's Skye was fantastic, especially when Skye was more supportive than she is now.
Yeah.
His Breach was also really good when Breach was being played a lot and when we thought there was good value to be gained from that role. But Shadow is one of the unfortunate casualties of the game moving in a duelist direction, in a loose direction, because he is a very supportive player. He's he's taking one of those roles that would normally be a Sova or a second duelist, something like that, and he's playing a purely supportive role. He's not freeing it up.
Team with duelists to support.
But even if he wasn't a team with duelists to support, he's occupying that it's almost like the Soulcast role, where you're playing the Skye, so you're not playing a duelist, but you're also not playing the Sova for your team. He's got an uncomfortable role on that squad that maybe frees FPX up now to play some other different compositions that they didn't feel they could before.
Yeah, I mean,
what more compositions do you want them to run? They've run everything under the sun.
Everything but fucking Jett. They've run everything but Jett, Skye, Astra. That's all I want to see. That's all I want to see. But it's not, listen, cool. They made some changes. Cool. You just have to see what they're going to play with. I mean, none of this matters to me. I just want to see what.
Isn't it crazy that they're not? They can't make last chance qualifiers. Is that not mind blowing to you guys?
It is kind of mind blowing
based on what
But
they've done. Like, sure,
but they
Wait, they're not in
actually,
last chance
we like to trash
qualifiers?
on
Nope,
them.
they're out of last chance qualifiers. That's why they're making
No
this
chance,
change.
not even if the EMEA makes it. Or
They-
I
wins.
didn't even know. I thought they were in it.
Nope, they're out. They needed Guild to qualify for Berlin so that G2 didn't get any points. G2 getting points knocked them out of last chance qualifiers. But it is mind-blowing to us because we've seen them at their best, but their best has not come in the tournaments that matter. Their best has come in the qualifier tournaments where they get
also
first, they get second in these qualifier tournaments,
Dude,
and then they haven't
someone
actually
has-
converted it into real good results that matter, and they are now out.
Someone needs to save Shao. Someone needs
Well,
to save him.
This team can save Shao by playing him on a more
can't save
active
him.
role, I think.
They can't.
They can.
They
I
can't save him.
think
Someone's got to save this
I
man.
think this year was hopefully a good learning process because the team obviously had a ton of skill and these players will be good elsewhere, but their approach
Maybe
and
Shao can
not just their approach, but
join
their
the
ability
Chinese team.
their ability to perform when it mattered also really hurt them. FPX had moments where they looked incredible. That's why we bought into the hype. They just couldn't do it.
This is my thing, though. Okay, hold on. I was about to get way too.
Go on.
I was about to get way too.
No, strangle the microphone.
Frame yourself. Frame
No,
yourself.
this is what I was going to say, though. The moments where they looked impressive, I swear it's just because they play it a style and less so now, but they played a style that was very attractive to people like us who are really into the game tactically, and we want to see strategic play and what teams can come up with and a new, different approach. And we all appreciated that very much. But fucking reality came in. A smack of reality to the face.
But
and it's just not the world we live in.
Okay, no, I understand that as aspect of the argument, but they have actually accomplished like first, second place finishes as well in EMEA, just at the wrong times. Like they've won qualifiers, they've come second in qualifiers, that kind of thing.
Fourth in Masters 1.
But-
like,
Yeah, but that's when they're running the same shit. That's when they're running the same stuff. They just can't.
I know, but that
They
was at a
can't bring it in the
different
big
time
games.
in the game. That is,
I mean, they literally qualified first. They qualified like third
first try.
in out of the EMEA this time around, right? And then they end up flopping in seventh, eighth, something like that.
What
Yeah,
was there?
it was
Can you pull up the
Ascend-
bracket, Kurt, please, of the
Ascend
FPX
G2,
first qualifier.
and I thought it was
I
FPX.
need to see this shit again. There's so many I don't know. I don't know what's happening anymore. Pull up the bracket, please, Kurt.
This then G2 Guild and FPX, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah, this is the previous one is what we want to look at here. So it's FPX when they played. There it is. So if you scroll upwards, it's their game against Ascend, for example. It's that tournament.
Okay.
Challengers
yes,
won.
yes, yes.
So they come in fourth place. They came behind
Yeah.
G2. But so they lose to Ascend, they lose to G2. Those are the two teams that end up making it through. Other than that, they'd beaten Liquid 2-0. Like they're getting wins against other competitive teams in EMEA during these qualifier games, and then they crumble and collapse in the big moments, and they can't adapt in big games. And that is the secondary point beyond just their comps, is that they want to play their game at all times.
Yeah.
And if you knock them off their game, they're fucked. And they need some more looseness to how they play in order to add that flexibility, I think.
Yeah,
You're over them?
I just don't care.
I'm done talking about FPX.
I
Let's
just,
move on.
it's just,
I'll save you.
they choke every tournament. Even if they, honestly, here's the thing though. Even if they're playing like good comps and shit, like, ooh, Shao's on Jett, they'd probably still choke. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, does it? I mean, even if they make it far, they still lose in the semifinal.
Next
whatever.
year.
I mean,
Next year is FPX's year.
Yeah, FPX. Yeah, they're Chinese team. They're going to be popping the fuck off when the game comes out in China. Can't wait for that FPX team.
All right, let's go through our EMEA power rankings as well, because again, this had people mauled in because they didn't realize that it was over the course of 3-4 months. And EMEA is really difficult to do this for because you're trying to combine totally different regions together.
Right.
And there are brand new squads like G2
Wait,
and
we did-
Supermassive Blaze.
Did we just not put someone in 10th?
Yeah, because Supermassive Blaze had
Those-
only been around for one.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have been in the 10th position. That's where I had ranked them as well. But they were, Ryan's point was they're such a new squad that you have to wait for them to actually climb their way up the rankings effectively. But they did win in Turkey.
They've done it.
Yeah. So, I mean,
They've done it.
looking at the rankings as they are here, though, there is a serious argument for Gambit being in the number 1 position over Ascend now, having beaten them. I mean, Ascend beat them in the upper in the upper finals or upper semis or whatever the hell it was. Gambit beat them in the lower final.
This is another situation where we're just going to do it based on time because Ascend won stage 1 and then did nothing stage 2.
I think so.
And then they lost finals and stage. Yeah, I mean,
Ascend's accomplishment of winning Masters was in stage 1, which is so long ago right now.
Yeah,
that I think it does make sense to have Gambit ranked above them at this point, considering how well Gambit performed here.
I'm on board.
I'm not, because it's seeding games. I mean, I hate to do that again, but it's the reality too. Like they Ascend beat them in the more important match, right? And
that's
there's still
definitely
this question
true.
mark of Gambit on real events where winning matters, whereas Ascend has proven they can win.
Okay.
Not necessarily multiple times, but they did, and that I think is the important takeaway from Masters 1, and not necessarily the result itself.
Are you not counting their lack of performance in stage 2 against them then for Ascend? Where they finished in, I don't even know what it was, like 10th or something, because they got upset by Vitality. It was still a good team at the time. But
yeah, but I don't know. I think that was such a weird time in EU. It was like maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about it because it was such a shitty format, and it was like open qualifier diff the second time around too. Like, whereas Gambit is playing in a different region as well. It's so difficult.
It is incredibly hard to rate like Gambit's performance in CIS versus Ascend's performance in EMEA, because the EMEA is more competitive. I mean, despite this time, I mean, the CIS and the Turkish team actually qualified in first and second place. So maybe this is going to change in the future, but the depth in EU is larger.
Have Ascend done enough to keep the first spot then by just qualifying and winning out the open qualifying for Berlin, but losing in the lower bracket? Is that enough to retain 1 combined with winning stage 1?
I mean, personally, I think...
Form?
Okay. I mean, my argument would be that stage 1 doesn't matter as much now, but I'm perfectly happy keeping Ascend as number 1 anyway, because I think Ascend, Gambit, they're clearly the 1 and 2 teams at this point as well. We previously had Liquid in 3rd and Fnatic in 4th, right? So Liquid's performance was good enough to keep them up at that kind of level, I feel. Even though it seems ridiculous, over this time span, Liquid have accomplished more than any other EMEA team. Going to Reykjavik, I guess it's them and Gambit are like the 2 teams that have actually accomplished the most in terms of deep tournament placements in stage 2 and stage 3.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
wild,
SMB qualified, but is SMB qualifying and through the upper bracket?
Yeah, I mean, SMB...
Is that enough for them to be ahead of Liquid now?
It could be. They won in Turkey.
That's too fast.
Won this time as well. How quickly do you want to speed them up the rankings? That's the problem with a new team.
I'm willing to put them above. I'm willing to put them above like Guild, Oxygen, FPX.
Oh yeah,
I'm willing to put them above every
other
team. Maybe they're just in 4th and Liquid retain 3rd just through sheer. They're like the envy of EMEA. You know, they're consistent, putting in some decent results near the top.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
What do you think, Balla?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around how to treat a team that is new, right? They don't have past results, and this is a ranking based off of past results, but also mixed with I'm just trying to wrap my head around how to deal with that.
Well,
do we just slot them in where they really do belong? Because that is realistically they're probably higher than Liquid, like in terms of power right now, but. So you devalue them a little bit because they're new? Like, what is the thought process to do this? Right?
Yeah, there's 2 different approaches, right? One is you give extreme recency bias and put them where you think they would be had they always been a team, and then you knock them down if they fail to live up to your expectations. Or the other option is they're a new team, you don't know enough about them, they have to earn their way up the rankings. So normally people do the second approach if if it was VCT points or if it was the ATP rankings in tennis or something. Normally you have to work your way up the rankings. But I'm I don't mind either direction. When we did G2, we definitely did the opposite approach where we worked up the rankings. That's why G2 are ranked 8th, even though we would have had them in the top 5 had it just
Well, I
been
think that's
based
fair
on
too, because
EMEA.
it was before the playoffs, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like there is a result about to happen that includes everybody on this list.
Yeah,
So,
For sure.
I think
makes
winning Turkey and coming second in the EMEA playoffs is a huge
And in the
accomplishment.
fashion
though.
they did, though,
Yeah,
too.
and they just rolled
Just
some other teams.
Stepping on some of the teams, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
I'm willing to put them in 4th because I think this is it was a remarkable run, and I think that personally, I value the accomplishment of them making it to Berlin and in the fashion they did, beating some of the teams that they did, a lot more than Guild consistently losing to those teams, but always finishing in like 7th.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Or same for FPX, Oxygen, BDS, whomever you really want to put there. I mean, I guess maybe the only other team that you could argue would be Fnatic still, but I mean,
No,
I don't think you can, though. I think Fnatic probably go down to 5th, and SMB are in 4th at this point.
yeah,
Unless you want to put G2 in 5th.
and that's the thing. I think G2 do climb as well because we had deliberately placed G2 as, you know, they're a new roster. They need to prove it. Yes, they got second place when it came to EU qualifiers, but they need to actually still make it to Berlin for us to rate them as a top team. They did. I mean, they made it to Berlin. They're the 4th place team, but everything that they've showcased so far has been, it's like similar but worse version of SMB.
Dude, Liquid are a remarkable. Sorry, Liquid are one of the most interesting teams in the scene right now.
They're weird.
There's no reason they should be. It's not no reason they should be this good, but it feels like every time every time you're about to watch a tournament where they're playing against other tier 1 competition, it always just feels like surely not, because there are clear issues with the personnel that they don't have. It's like there are clear holes that aren't filled, yet it doesn't matter, and they're just wicked consistent. But their consistency always comes from like outlandish.
Yeah,
clutch.
They're not consistent in the small, but they're consistent overall.
Yeah, they are a very interesting team in the scene.
They're a weird one.
Yeah.
They are a weird one. I mean, even if you gave Supermassive Blaze the benefit of the doubt and put them at 3rd, Liquid would still be ranked above G2.
Yes.
So, you know, over the time period that we're talking about. So, you know, the 1 and 2 could be flipped, the 3 and 4 could be flipped, but the general theme is still there of Liquid being within the top 4, which it is mad, isn't it?
It is.
I think it's mad
It is
when
wild,
I look at it.
but
Guild again outperformed FPX.
we got to put Fnatic in 6, right?
Oh, sure.
Fnatic have to be in 6. I don't see who else could even possibly be there.
Yes, after
I mean, they won stage 2. They came second in Reykjavik.
they came second in stage 2 actually, but
They lost. To
Oh
Liquid.
yeah, they lost to Liquid.
it was Liquid were number
Team
1.
Liquid
That's again
coming
why
through.
Liquid are
Yeah,
number
I actually
1.
forgot about that. Yeah, it was Fnatic beat them in like the first.
Yeah, the first round. or
round.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, and then
Exactly.
Liquid, the other reason why Liquid's above is because they beat them for qualifying for the main event too. Liquid was the one that stopped Fnatic from even being in these playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But past that, Fnatic clearly have more accomplishments than every other team on this list, and it's actually not even close. This is kind of where I think the gap is on this ranking.
Sure. If we move FPX down at least to 8th, though, the next teams that we're discussing here are Guild. Oxygen were in there just based on having a top 4 performance at EMEA last time in stage 2, and the fact that they had done relatively well in stage 1 as well, and they'd just been around for longer than Supermassive Blaze, but obviously Supermassive Blaze have overtaken them significantly at this point, and already had when we did our last rankings. It was just historic bias. But Oxygen kind of flopped this time around. They didn't even do anything really. They got beasted. So I think
they beat Giants. Like I think
right, they beat Giants,
that.
and then they got like 30. Didn't they get rolled by
They
Guild
got
or something?
crushed by G2.
Oh,
after
G2.
that.
Right, yeah. It was G2.
13-2 and then 14-12. I didn't watch this match.
I think this is the area though where you're discussing the 3 teams at the bottom that Kurt's laid out. Those 3 teams are fighting over that 7th place spot. Giants, much more recent history. Oxygen have done middling results over a long period of time. Guild have had very similar results to Oxygen, actually, except in a different region.
Where was Guild in the previous ranking?
The Guild in the previous one were, I think, our 7th place team, or maybe
no, they
6th
were a little
place.
higher. They were like 6th or 5th or something.
I don't think they were 5th.
Maybe not 5th, but maybe I think.
Oh, they were in 5th? That's crazy. So yeah, Guild were in 5th.
That is crazy.
But obviously they've been
That
overtaken by
reaction.
Supermassive Blaze and G2
David
at this
Beckham
point.
is about to be pissed
They
at
were
this ranking.
5th in our own rankings. That's fucking crazy.
It is.
It is.
But they
Who passed that through?
listen, it was just facts at the point. SMB and G2 though have clearly overtaken them. So they would
Yeah.
naturally drop to 7th unless they've been overtaken by Oxygen
I
and Giants.
almost want to put Giants there, but
I mean, Giants beat them, right?
I mean, Giants did beat them.
But
I don't
their
think
accomplishments-
Guild have, despite their placements, they have never looked even close to making a deep run and like really qualifying,
they're a
really
gatekeeper
getting a high
team.
placement.
They're a gatekeeper team. That's their
And
space
Giants
in the scene.
fucking, they kicked the door open.
They didn't kick the door open, mate. They squeezed through a crack in the door. They squeezed through a crack in the gate.
They went through the little dog door and just squeezed through that. Yeah.
Giants have also not been around for a while as well. But
Yeah.
I think it would be overrating Giants slightly based on this recent run to put them in.
Giants
they
have to be
qualified
an
through
eighth
challenges
then.
too. Yeah, I think putting Guild, Giants, Oxygen, something like that, and then FPX is probably finishes your top 10.
Sure.
I think BDS have been firmly booted off the list at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
What about Navi?
I think Navi were pretty good, but I think they had a sad last game. They kind of lumped out against Giants.
They had a flash, but they
I mean, they had a good win over Liquid. I didn't even look good in the lower bracket. That Giant. I don't think they played well in that Giants game. I was kind of disappointed. I thought that they were actually ready to go on a little run.
Mm-hmm.
But-
yeah, they've got good players. They look like they're too new of a team to be able to live up to their potential at this point. Let's go for Guild in 7th. Let's build this power ranking and then we can have any final thoughts.
Then Giants in 8th, move FPX down 1.
FPX go down to 10th, mate.
Oh,
there's,
10th?
There's no shot that FPX are still up there, right?
I'm fine with that. Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm fine with that.
didn't
makes sense.
Oxygen and FPX finish at the same position in this ranking?
I don't
Can
remember.
Balla,
No.
could you look up the bracket and see?
But yes, they did.
Yeah, they finished at the same position in the bracket, and Oxygen were already historically putting up better results than FPX
Okay.
were. So there's no way that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I feel
Listen,
like
I'm fine with that. Shit,
Yeah.
we could put fucking Forza in 10th. I mean,
I think
had a better showing. I mean,
yeah, they did this time around.
did.
Actually, I mean, they did.
oh,
They literally
fucking put
did.
10 star in 10th.
10
10's in the name.
Yeah, I think I'm relatively happy with this one
Yeah,
though, as well.
I'm fine with this.
Like
yeah.
over the course of it,
Lock
it's
it in.
yeah.
Ship it.
There's
Ship
just
it.
something
It's been
about
shipped.
yeah. There's just I don't know something about Guild that's just I don't know. It's like they have such
The
a high
David
spot in the
Beckham
ranking, but they
allure.
never look like they're going to actually do damage in a bracket.
Yep.
It's just
It's like old Xset. Before Xset
kind
added
of,
Def
yeah.
and Zekken, it's like that, where they turn up and they're going to qualify. You know they're going to qualify. They're one of the top teams, but they're never going to do any damage in the actual
Yeah.
big bracket when they get in there. They feel very similar to that to me. But Xset
Yeah.
made some really good changes, and now they have much more upwards potential. All right, let's get on to our most important segment of the week. Every single week, it is the most important segment. Baby TW got it last week, not getting it again because Balla doesn't think
Nope.
she deserves it.
doesn't deserve it.
It's Wyatt's weekly award.
Oh, I didn't see you there. It's time for Wyatt's weekly award and dinner. Yep. Yep. Just laughing in the background. Yep.
Time for dinner.
Time for dinner. This week, the weekly award
Goes to.
it's appropriate that it's the chilly one. It's going to Heat.
Oh, that's the worst setup in the world. I hate that.
I mean, that is awful, isn't it?
I hate that.
You
That
thought
is
about
awful.
that for so long, and you're like, should I do it? Should I do it?
I know, I did. I mean, it's just awful. It's fucking awful. Kurt, can you pull up that clip that I sent you again? The one with the Vandal 3K spray. Just
through the
pull
smoke,
that
yeah.
up and put it on 0.25 and keep playing it.
Is this why you like him? Because he's a Vandal player?
Yep.
Oh, fucking hell.
Because he can, because he has
Spray control
he
with
has
the Vandal.
spray control with the Vandal.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. The Phantom lovers are in shambles. Vandal haters they refuse to believe that the tape is real. They think that it's been edited.
It's been doctored.
It hasn't been doctored. It hasn't been doctored. He has spray control with the Vandal. Look at this
0.25, Kurt.
Look at that.
He missed.
Hold on. Nope.
He missed. All right,
One.
great headshot.
2 flicks onto the third.
I mean, that is
through the
wild,
smoke.
though. I mean, that spray control
Easy.
with the spray.
It's
is-
just
It'd be so much better if he had a
easy.
butterfly knife and he was flipping that shit afterwards in his hand. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I
You
had
gonna buy
people-
that ball?
Absolutely. Yes, let's go.
that butterfly knife does look pretty sick.
I just wish it had like, I don't know. It should have like fire coming out of it, or it should like glow.
You are so
Or it should,
trashy.
like-
You
Could
are
be a
so
fucking
tacky.
dragon.
No, because that's the status of Valorant. If things aren't like glowing and shining and there's not fire coming out of them and like, you know what I mean, it's it's cool and I like the animation, but I expect some more craziness from my skins now.
Okay.
I expect abs. I mean, it's cool, but I expect just insanity with the skins. Particle effects everywhere.
I'm not
Lower
gonna-
my FPS when I take it out. Lower my FPS.
Lower my- yes.
I'm not going to buy it, but I will enjoy feeling like the spy from TF2 if I ever do get it. Just,
It really,
it's what I
yeah,
always associate butterfly
it
knife
really
stuff
is
with.
just the spy, isn't it?
It is.
Anyhow, I'm giving the award to
Quintessential.
Heat, the fucking hope of Brazil
Yes.
in this tournament, because he is just outlandish. He's all around, every aspect of a good duelist. Looks like he has it. I just hope he comes into the tournament with the same level of confidence. You know, when he's playing against the top teams from the other regions, that he approaches them in the same way he does within just playing the games in Brazil, because he really did just turn up for Vivo Keyd and get them a spot. So I'm looking forward to watching him play. I mean, hopefully, if he lives up to it, he will be one of the most entertaining players to watch in Berlin for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be so good, man. I'm so hyped for Berlin. It's actually going to be a sick tournament. There's so many good players going. But all of the regions have sent some nutty talent. It's going to be so much better than Reykjavik, and Reykjavik was already great.
Oh, I mean, it's going to, yeah. I mean,
we have 2 weeks. Fucking 2 weeks.
I know,
from
it's
now.
so close. It's
is
really,
crazy.
really close.
hopefully we get the brackets by next week.
Yeah, and also
That'll be
hopefully
good.
we'll have an announcement about being able to co-stream it as well. I haven't talked to the rest of these guys about that, but I will after the show. We have final welcome to member stuff to discuss as we think about and head into our Berlin co-streams and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Got to get on the welcome to member. Curtis, any new members?
Yeah, we have one new member, Zix. Welcome to member, Zix.
Welcome to member. Welcome to member.
member.
Welcome to member. And I'm sure we'll have some more shenanigans prepped for Berlin co-stream, assuming we get permission to do it. And hopefully we'll have some news about that to announce next week. And we'll do our normal shit. We'll probably be talking about Japan, SEA, maybe do some power rankings, bracket preds, whatever the fuck. Who knows? Will the groups be out? I don't know.
SEA power rankings. That's what we're bringing next week. The SEA
Brand new
power rankings.
sport, number one.
We're going to
Who
be
knows?
doing something that I've been working on for the past
Ooh.
week.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
do have a cool
Kurt's
new
been building
segment.
a fucking game show. Kurt's got a genuine, I'm going to be the host of a game show for next week.
Let's go.
So that is actually going to be sick. Kurt's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on that. So you definitely want to catch next
And I
episode.
think hopefully next episode 2 of Vash should be back.
Yeah.
So we'll have the fucking boys
Maybe.
back together.
Yeah.
It'll
Very
be like-
possibly.
Yarr.
It'll be like after the Fellowship defeated Sauron and they finally regroup. Here come and Brennus Boromir, we lost him along the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that actually tracks really well. All right, we'll see you for the next episode. Goodbye.